Pokemon Ninjutsu Master Chapter 851-900. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 851. Luokan looked at Yi Yi in surprise. She didn't expect her to change her face when she said she would change her face. It was a little hard to accept that she had become so serious all of a sudden. What's wrong? Yi Yi found that Luo Chen was looking at him, so he asked. Luokan waved his hand and said to Yi Yi, they have only activated their abilities once, so they probably won't be able to activate them on their own. Oh, that's right. You just need to think back to the people you met when you activated your abilities. Yi Yi said lightly. It is not difficult to activate the ability, the important thing is how to master this ability. After hearing Yaiki's words, Orihime closed her eyes and began to recall that it was because of Long Zegui that day was activated. Long Z is precious, Long Z is precious. Orihime thought so. The hairpin suddenly flew into the air, and the 6 little people fell. Is there anything you need our help with? Lily asked Orihime gently. Orihime immediately became happy when she saw these little people, and said embarrassedly, it's nothing, I'm just doing special training tilde. It's okay, you actually handed us over. The villain who covered his face was angry very bad, chasing Orihime all over the house. I'm sorry. Orihime had to run away and apologize. Orihime's talent is quite high, but in 1 minute she mastered the method of opening the 6 flowers of Dungeon. Yes, but it seems to be a very difficult task to master this kind of power. Yi Yi said sadly. Looking at Chadu again, he closed his eyes tightly, his expression was very painful, as if he was about to vomit. Chadu, are you alright? Luokan hurriedly woke Chadu, fearing that something would happen to him. Chadu shook his head and replied, I'm just thinking about Ichigo's younger sister, but after turning Ichigo into a woman, it's really hard to accept. Luokan was speechless for a moment, and after listening to Chadu's words, Ichigo also appeared in his mind, and then he became a girl. Ah, it's really unacceptable. Luo Chen's face was also very ugly, and the thought of Ichigo turning into a woman made people nauseous. You two are really... Yi Yi sighed helplessly. Luokan quickly took out the photo of Shaoli for Chadu's reference. This time, Chadu closed his eyes and finally imagined what Shaoli looked like, and then used a powerful force. A strong arm is also a very powerful strength. Yi Yi nodded with satisfaction, which was absolutely suitable for the strength of the two of them. Diaresis okay. Now that the power has been successfully activated, we are going to enter the official license. Yi Yi said seriously, his expression instantly changed to a stern teacher. Yes. Orihime and Chadu replied in unison, and they both took a serious attitude and prepared to study. Luokan looked at them seriously and prepared to stop bothering them. He still has a long way to go in his pharmaceutical career, so he said goodbye to a few people. Luokan has already tasted the fun of refining medicine with Li Hao, so he once again mentioned several medicines and asked the system to help them find them. After the search, please go to Longshan to collect herbs. The system pointed out a direction to Luokan, and Luokan set off immediately. He wanted to make a lot of medicine in case he needed it. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 852. Luokan came to Longshan to collect the herbs, and found that there was always spiritual energy emitting not far away, so he went forward to check. Luokan carefully hid in the grass to observe, and found that Ishida Yulong was shooting arrows with a strange bow. Ishida Yulong, are you in special training? Luokan was very puzzled when he saw that he had been doing archery all the time, and he didn't have any special training. Ishida Yulong didn't expect Luokan to appear suddenly. The arrow in his hand suddenly lost control, and rushed towards Luokan. Luckily, Luokan was very responsive, otherwise he would have become the ghost of Ishida Yulong's arrow. Sorry, I didn't expect you to come here, so I accidentally missed it. Ishida Yulong said guiltily, his fingers bleeding because he kept pulling the bow. Luokan waved his hand to indicate that he was fine. Seeing Ishida Yulong's fingers, he immediately thought of a medicine. Take this for you, your fingers will get better soon. Luo Chen took out a bottle of instant wound medicine from his backpack, which can instantly heal wounds on the outside of the body. Ishida Yulong didn't hesitate. He took the instant wound medicine and ate it, and then his fingers really stopped bleeding. What is this? Why can the wound be healed so quickly? Ishida Yulong was surprised by the efficacy of the medicine. It took him several days to recover from such a wound before. Luokan showed a smug smile. When he made this medicine, he thought of the picture of Yulong Ishida pulling a bow and shooting an arrow and hurting his finger. Now it finally comes in handy. So Luokan gave all the instant wound medicine to Ishida Yulong. If the finger is injured again, eat one, to ensure that the finger can be restored to its original state. Luo Chen's expression was very proud, and he was finally able to help others. Ishida Yulong was very moved, and now he has firmed up his determination to become stronger. Thank you, I'm going to continue the special training. As long as I can shoot arrows for 7 consecutive days, I will be able to master this power. Ishida Yulong said seriously. Luokan wanted to ask what special training Ishida Yulong was doing just now, but it turned out that it was just to increase his own strength, and there was no training on skills. Then keep up the good work. Luokan thought about it for a while. If he continued to draw the bow and shoot arrows for 7 days, his fingers would definitely be seriously injured. Fortunately, Luokan made this medicine, which was too timely. When Luokan was about to leave, a light suddenly appeared, so he turned around and said to Ishida Yulong, "Why don't you try to gather the spirits around you on your feet? This may ensure your safety, and you can quickly chase the enemy." Ishida Yulong was stunned after hearing Luokan's words. Why didn't he think of this aspect? He had heard Grandpa say this trick before, but very few people could practice it. I see, thank you for falling dust. Ishida Yulong has made up his mind. He must master this trick, no matter how much he sacrifices. Luo Chen smiled lightly and said, "This is just my personal opinion. If you don't think so, just treat it as if I didn't say it." "No, I will seriously consider it, thank you," Ishida Yulong said very seriously. "This makes the dust a little bad, that's right, so I stopped bothering Ishida Yulong for special training," and Luokan continued to pick herbs on the mountain by himself. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 853. The sound of the system kept ringing in Luokan's mind, and there were more and more herbs in the backpack. The herbs in the backpack would be full in the morning. Let's make some medicines first, otherwise there will be no place to put the herbs. Luokan said and turned on the medicine system. After a while of making medicine, Luo Chen accidentally found a bunch of grilled fish in his backpack. "Ah, what is this?" Luokan asked suspiciously. He didn't remember putting such things in his backpack. The system reminded, "This is a medicated diet produced by accident. It can help people increase their physical strength. It's a very good thing." When Luokan heard it, he quickly took it out and ate it. After a bite, he felt that the taste was not bad, so he ate it happily. After eating a bunch of grilled fish, Luokan found that he had grown a lot taller and his strength had also increased. It's really amazing. Luokan was surprised at the change in himself, but he didn't expect that a skewer of grilled fish would make him change in essence. It's a pity that there is only one skewer of grilled fish, otherwise he would be able to eat it for Ishida Yulong. He must have been training very hard for so long, so he continued to replenish his energy. Recharging apples can replenish physical strength. The system reminded me very intimately. Luokan opened his backpack and saw that there were really a bunch of apples, and he could replenish his stamina. "It's great, Ishida Yulong, I'm here," Luokan said and returned to the training place of Ishida Yulong. At this time, Ishida Yulong was already sweating profusely on his head, and his hand pulling the bowstring slowed down, but he did not stop to rest. "Take a rest, Ishida Yulong, and replenish the energy to be able to perform the special training better." Luokan handed a charging apple to Ishida Yulong. Ishida Yulong stopped, took Luokan's apple and took a bite, with an expression of surprise on his face instantly. What's the matter? What's wrong with the apple? Luokan didn't eat the apple, and thought it was a special apple, which Ishida Yulong couldn't accept. XXX. Ishida Yulong shook his head and said excitedly, "This apple is so delicious, where did you buy it?" Luokan breathed a sigh of relief upon hearing what Ishida Yulong said, and replied with a smile, "I picked it in this mountain, I have a lot more here, you should eat more." Ishida Yulong ate several unceremoniously, but his stomach didn't swell up, instead his body felt full of strength. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. It's really amazing, I feel like I have endless strength now. Ishida Yulong thought he would be unable to walk anymore, but he didn't. Luokan laughed proudly, "This is a charging apple, and of course it will make the person who eats it full of power. I'm going to continue training," Ishida Yulong said energetically. He felt that Luokan was really incredible, and every time he came, it would bring him surprises. Luokan was sitting leisurely and eating apples. After a morning of collecting medicine, he also felt tired, so he had to take a break and leave the medicine to the system. "I'm free labor." The system couldn't help but complain. Luokan smiled. He didn't care about the system's complaints at all. He lay down leisurely and looked at the clouds in the sky, fell asleep unconsciously, and it would be dark when he woke up again. "It's so late." Luo Chen was very surprised, not knowing why he slept for so long. 100 million. Chapter 854. Luokan came to Urahara Kazuki's store to check on Ichigo's situation. "What is this? Is it empty or?" Luo Chen looked at the masked person in doubt, full of doubts in his heart. Xiaoyu and Urahara Kazuki were equally puzzled, and wanted to know whether the other party was a ghost or a reaper. Seeing that the opponent raised the Zanpakuto and was about to attack, Luo Chen quickly pulled out the Zanpakuto to resist, with many questions in his heart. "What's going on in 253? Luo Chen asked excitedly. "What happened in just one day?" "Ka!" The other party chopped up the mask on his face with the broken Zanpakuto, revealing Ichigo's face. "Ichigo, why did Ichigo become like this?" Luo Chen rushed to Urahara Kazuki and asked seriously. The Ichigo he saw yesterday was still fine, why did he turn into such a ghost in one day? Ichigo opened his mouth to speak. "Don't worry, I'm fine, but now I feel like my whole body is full of power." Luo Chen only felt that Yihu was seriously ill now, and he didn't dare to keep Yihu here any longer. Kazuki Urahara suddenly smiled and congratulated Ichigo. "Congratulations on officially becoming a god of death, but the next test will not be so easy." Luokan listened to the conversation between the two and felt a little foggy. He had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. Ichigo said to Urahara Kazuki unconcernedly, "What can I do? I'm full of energy now." Urahara Kazuki slowly took out the Zanpakuto from the cane, pointed to Ichigo and said, "As long as you complete the latter test will be able to pass the special training." "What test?" Luo Chen finally understood a little bit now. He already felt that the power of death on Ichigo had completely recovered. "It's enough to defeat me, I won't show mercy." Urahara Kazuki glanced at Luokan when he said this, and a murderous aura instantly radiated from behind him. Luokan frowned, feeling a headache for Kazuki Urahara's murderous aura, and apologized to Ichigo for being his scapegoat. "Then I'm welcome." Ichigo swung the broken Zanpakuto to attack Urahara Kazuki. However, Urahara Kazuki's reaction was very sensitive, and he blocked Ichigo's attack with a knife on one side of his body. "I didn't expect that your broken Zanpakuto could continue to be used," Urahara Kazuki said sternly, and with a violent force he blocked Ichigo back, and then chopped at Ichigo. Luokan saw that Kazuki Urahara used 80% of his power, and quickly reminded Ichigo to dodge. "Ichigo, be careful." Ichigo was stunned, and subconsciously moved to the side to dodge, only to hear a loud noise behind him. With a sound of boom, the mound not far away was cut in half. "Are you going to kill me?" Ichigo looked at Kazuki Urahara in horror. His previous aura was completely gone. Even if Luokan knew that Urahara Kazuki was using power for personal gain, he couldn't say anything. Who told him to hand Ichigo to Urahara Kazuki? "Come on, Ichigo," Luo Chen said lightly. He couldn't bear to see Ichigo being tortured by Urahara Kazuki. Facing Kazuki Urahara's attack, Ichigo was completely unable to fight back, so he had to run away. Suddenly, Ichigo thought that he was the god of death now, and Urahara Kazuki was just a bit more aggressive, so he probably wouldn't cut himself. So Ichigo stood still and prepared to attack Urahara Kazuki. Unexpectedly, Kazuki Urahara's attack cut off a strand of Ichigo's hair, which surprised Ichigo. Chapter 855. Why? Ichigo looked at Kazuki Urahara in horror. Urahara Kazuki said lightly, "Don't think that if you are the god of death now, I won't be able to hurt you. If you are not careful, I will kill you." Luokan couldn't help but remind Urahara Kazuki not to overdo it. Urahara Kazuki turned around with a sullen face and said with a smile, "Of course I am measured." After speaking, Urahara Kazuki slashed Ichigo again. Looking at the power of the blow, it didn't seem to be measured at all. "Xiaoyu, is your store manager always like this at 22? Luokan asked embarrassedly. He seemed to feel that Urahara Kazuki regarded Ichigo as himself. Xiaoyu tilted her head slightly and said to Luokan, "The store manager is a cheapskate who loves to hold grudges very much. Anyone who provokes him will have a tragic end." "What did you say, Xiaoyu?" Urahara Kazuki suddenly turned his head and attacked Xiaoyu. The huge slash slashed over. Luckily, Luokan blocked Xiaoyu, otherwise Xiaoyu would definitely be injured. "You're crazy, something is coming at me," Luokan shouted excitedly. He really didn't know Kazuki Urahara was such a person. Urahara Kazuki smiled faintly. Without speaking, he turned his head and launched a frantic hunt for Ichigo. "Ichigo, hurry up. Luokan is now Norihara Kazuki and has no choice but to let a household escape." Xiaoyu thanked Luokan, and Luokan waved her hand. "I really don't know how the owner of this body used to get along with Kazuki Urahara." Ichigo's tragic screams kept coming, and the broken Zanpakuto in his hand was also beaten aside by Urahara Kazuki. Luokan saw that Ichigo had nowhere to escape, so Urahara Kazuki slashed at Ichigo without hesitation. Boom! Ichigo fell to the ground after being cut. "Ichigo!" Luo Chen exploded instantly when he saw Ichigo lying on the ground. He asked Urahara Kazuki to teach Ichigo, but he never expected that Ichigo would be so murdered. Urahara Kazuki. Luo Chen walked towards Urahara Kazuki with a gloomy face. Urahara Kazuki felt the aura emanating from Luokan's body retreating back and forth again and again, waving his hands in a panic, trying to explain. "What do you have to explain now?" Luokan asked indifferently. He thought that Ichigo had been killed by Urahara Kazuki, and he felt very sad, so he had to teach him a good lesson. Urahara Kazuki arrived before he could explain Luo Chen's attack. "I saw Luokan's hands sizzling with electricity. This is Ninjutsu, Chidori. The attack is very powerful, and the whole field trembled. Don't hurt the store manager." Xiaoyu suddenly ran to Kazuki Urahara and opened his arms to block. Luokan quickly let Xiaoyu dodge. He didn't want to hurt innocent people. He didn't release his anger on innocent people like Urahara Kazuki. Xiaoyu shook her head firmly and explained, "The manager did this to repair the Zanpakuto, and there was no way out." As soon as Luo Chen heard that the repair Zanpakuto calmed down, the energy in his hand also recovered, and asked Xiaoyu what it meant. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 856. Urahara Kazuki explained all his plans to Luokan, so that he would not misunderstand him again. "I'm really sorry." Luo Chen said embarrassedly. He almost made a mistake. When Urahara Kazuki heard Luokan's apology, he suddenly felt like he was walking around the gate of hell. He thought he was dead. Hey, who told you that you didn't explain clearly at the beginning, and then attacked Ichigo when you came up? It was all a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Luo Chen smiled awkwardly, and he was so ashamed that he couldn't help himself. Urahara Kazuki has been trying his best to help Ichigo mention his abilities, but Luokan also misunderstood that he was avenging his personal revenge, which is totally inappropriate. Urahara Kazuki said quietly, "This misunderstanding is really terrible. You almost killed me." Luokan could only smile awkwardly. He didn't know what to say. Xiaoyu suddenly said, "If Ichigo can't restore the true power of Zanpakuto, he will still die." What tilde? Luokan widened his eyes in surprise and looked at Kazuki Urahara angrily. Urahara Kazuki just came over, and when he saw Luokan's fierce eyes again, he felt aggrieved in his heart, and he really regretted taking on this task. This was originally a special training for a lifetime of death. The reason why I didn't tell you was because I was afraid that you would be worried. Urahara Kazuki believed that if he told Luokan in advance, he would definitely object to this special training, and then force himself to think of other ways. I believe Ichigo will be fine. Luokan said firmly. He could feel the energy in Ichigo recovering little by little. Just like that, time passed by minute, and Luo Chen didn't know how much time passed because he was below. Suddenly, Ichigo stood up, holding the intact Zanpakuto again in his hand. Ichigo, you succeeded, Luokan said in surprise. Ichigo proudly showed off his new Zanpakuto. After this training, he finally found out his Zanpakuto name. Tell me, what's the name of your Zanpakuto? Urahara Kazuki was relieved. If Ichigo didn't survive, Luokan would definitely kill himself. Ichigo raised his Zanpakuto to Kazuki Urahara, and said loudly, its name is Zanyu. Huh, why isn't Ichigo's Zanpakuto deformed? Luokan asked suspiciously. He saw that when Renji called out his Zanpakuto's name, the Zanpakuto had changed in shape. Urahara Kazuki explained. Diaresis because Ichigo's Zanpakuto is always in a released state. Its shape will not change, just like my red princess. Your Zanpakuto, so you are. Ichigo was interrupted by Urahara Kazuki before he could finish his words. Boy, don't think that the task of restoring the Zanpakuto to its original state is complete. Next, we will give you all-round special training. Luokan felt that Ichigo's ability in the body had steadily increased with Li Hao and was very satisfied with Urahara Kazuki's special training, so he thanked Urahara Kazuki. You don't need to say more if you're polite, it's better to be honest. Urahara Kazuki immediately showed a look of greed for money. If Urahara Kazuki didn't show this, Luokan would really give him some. But Luokan wanted to teach Urahara Kazuki a lesson when he saw that Kazuki was so greedy for money, so he refused. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 857. It's ruthless to treat others as free labor. Urahara Kazuki complained in a low voice. Luokan exuded a lot of power and asked Urahara Kazuki, "What did you say just now?" "It's nothing, nothing, I said leave everything to me." Urahara Kazuki once again confessed under the coercion of Luokan, and obediently taught Ichigo. Luokan was finally relieved to see Ichigo's rapid growth. Thinking that Ichigo's family still needed an explanation, he left Kazuki Urahara's store. However, when he came out, it was already dawn, and Luo Chen had to go home quickly to check. "Brother Luokan, you're back." The wanderer sat at breakfast full of energy, and greeted him cordially when he saw Luokan coming back. Luokan looked at the wandering child suspiciously, not knowing why she had this expression. Shouldn't she be surprised to see that she just came back? At this time, Shali came out of the room, and when she saw Luo Chen, she immediately said, "Brother Luokan accompanies Brother Ichigo to rehearse at a classmate's house. You must be tired, come over and eat quickly." Luo Chen was stunned for a moment, It turned out that all this was an excuse for Xiaoli, so she cast a grateful look at Xiaoli and said thank you lightly. Xiaoli also smiled back, and asked Luo Chen to bring the food to the table for dinner. System, is this okay? Wouldn't Xiaoli have such a memory affect it? Luo Chen worried that this incident would affect Xiaoli's safety. XXX. The system replied, it won't matter, the Ichigo family is capable, and even I can't intervene. Oh, since it won't affect Luo Chen, he can rest assured. He doesn't want Xiaoli to have any accident because of his relationship. After breakfast, Luokan went to the training place where Orihime and the others were training. However, before Luo Chen went upstairs, he heard a loud noise from above, a huge hole appeared upstairs, and a circle of people immediately surrounded him. Luokan quickly ran upstairs to check. You idiot, don't you know how to control a little bit of strength? Yi loudly blamed Chadu, the hole just now was punched by Chadu. Chadu is fine, it's amazing to be able to practice this level in one day. Luokan sincerely praised. Yi's face is very ugly. The loud noise just now has attracted the attention of the people around him, and now there is the sound of a police car, so he can't continue training here. Let's go, Yi said and ran out. She couldn't let people find them here for special training. Luokan followed Yi and the others to a nearby construction site, and there was no one here for the time being. What shall we do next? Chadu also realized the seriousness of the problem and asked a question. Yi was really going to be pissed off by Chadu. The place she worked so hard to find was abandoned like this. Now let her go to find such a good training ground. Luokan asked the system if there was any way to do it. The system is worthy of being a system, and immediately took out a magic weapon. Space automaton. Luo Chen looked at the introduction of the machine. To put it simply, a space automaton is a space that can be created without being discovered, and then can conduct special training at will. That's right, thank you for the system, that's it. There was an extra machine in Luokan's backpack in an instant. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 858. Before Luo Chen could be happy, he heard the satisfied voice of the system in his mind. Thanks to the host for ordering the space automatic machine, and charging you 100,000 yuan. Your balance is 0, please earn gold coins in time. What? Luo Chen shouted loudly while looking at the machine in his backpack. A broken machine actually needs 100,000 gold coins, this is an obvious robbery. On the night, Orihime and Chadu looked at Luokan who was shouting in confusion. They didn't know who he was talking to, and they looked very excited. Luokan's behavior of testing the system strongly, he didn't tell himself that this thing is so expensive in advance, if he knew, he would definitely not buy it. Luokan, are you alright? Yi saw that Luokan's face was blue for a while and white for a while, and thought he was just angry for him. Luo Chen looked at Yi resentfully, and said sadly, I'm bankrupt. Bankrupt. Yi kept saying what Lu Chen was saying, why did he go bankrupt tilde? Luokan and the others couldn't explain it clearly, so he secretly cried with grief, took out the space automatic machine to create a space, and asked Yi and the others to hurry up for special training, otherwise their 100,000 would be wasted. This place is so big. Orihime walked into the created space and shouted loudly, she could hear the echo. Yi was also a little surprised, not knowing how Luo Chen did it. Luokan took out the spatial automatic machine and handed it over to Yi, so she could operate it herself when she needed it. I see, this must be Kazuki Urahara's latest invention, right? Yi said proudly, but she knew that Kazuki Urahara had invented many strange things. Although it seemed useless at ordinary times, at critical moments always comes in handy. Luokan smiled awkwardly, and didn't know how to explain it. So he put this thing on Kazuki Urahara's head. That's right, he invented it. You guys have a good special training. I'll go first. Luokan left the space of creation depressed and returned to the real world. Tell me how to make money. Luokan knew that a penny was hard to kill a hero, so he was going to start making money. The system gave several tasks, but the rewards were not high. The highest one was only 100 gold coins. Hey, are you just cheating on me? You only gave me 100 gold coins for such a troublesome and time-consuming task. You are definitely possessed by Urahara Kazuki. Luokan kept complaining. If the system was a real person, Luokan would definitely it beats. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. The system also said helplessly, otherwise, the host will complete the achievement, and you can get mysterious items unexpectedly. What mysterious item? Luo Chen was really moved by the system when he said that. Where does the system know what kind of mysterious item it is? And if it knows it, how can it be called a mysterious item? Che, tell me, how to do it. Luokan is now full of curiosity about mysterious items, so he is not afraid of trouble. The system showed Luokan the way, and soon Luokan came to a deep mountain. Where is this place? Luokan was very surprised when he looked at the thatched hut in front of him. In today's modern world, there are still people living in this thatched hut, which is really incredible. At this time, an old man came out. When he saw Luo Chen, he was very happy and immediately invited him into the room. 100 million. Chapter 859. Falling Chen's love was difficult, so he followed the old gentleman into the thatched hut. Unexpectedly, the environment will change as soon as you enter the thatched hut. The house has become a villa, and the surrounding trees have also become landscapes and bamboo forests. Ah, what the hell is this? Luokan thought he had passed through again, and kept checking with the system. That's right, this is the world of the god of death, and everything here is an illusion. It is used to help the host Ruwuki improve his abilities. The system gave Luokan an answer. After saying that, Luokan is relieved. He just spent 100,000 yuan, and he hasn't seen any return yet, so he definitely doesn't want to cross. Young man, are you willing to help me busy? The old gentleman asked politely. Luokan was naturally willing, otherwise he wouldn't have come here. That's good, I'm feeling a little sick now and need some medicine. Can you help me take it back? Tell me, what kind of medicine is it? Luokan has collected a lot of medicine in the past few days, and he can't even fit it in his backpack. Dragon beard grass, the old man said slowly, with an embarrassed expression on his face. In his knowledge, this is a very rare herb. There just happened to be dragon's whiskers in Luokan's backpack, so he took it out and handed it in. It's really dragon's beard grass, it's really good. The old man was immediately excited, and he couldn't put it down with dragon's beard grass. The sound of the system instantly came from Luokan's mind. Ding tilde congratulations to the host for fulfilling the old man's wish, getting a bonus of 100,000 yuan, and at the same time getting the old man's blessing, you can immediately get a status. One herbal medicine can be exchanged for 100,000 yuan, why didn't you bring me here earlier? Luokan smiled instantly and liked this task very much. The system is also very helpless. How does it know what the content of this task is, and the 100,000 that it has finally obtained has been returned? Luokan successfully got 100,000 gold coins, and at the same time, there was an extra stone in his backpack. The title was The Blessing of the Old Man. After Luokan completed the task, he left the illusion automatically. He has now returned to Ichigo's house. The scene changed too quickly. Luo Chen asked in surprise. He was almost unable to react. The system said dissatisfiedly, "You have been in the illusion for too long, so you are directly sent here to facilitate your life." Teleportation. Do you still have this function? Luokan suddenly felt that a happy and beautiful life was waiting for him, and he no longer had to worry about where to go. As soon as the system heard Luo Chen's question, it immediately closed its mouth and remained silent. Hey, don't pretend to be dumb, I know you're here, hurry up and explain the teleportation to me. Is it the same as the teleportation I imagined? Luokan asked happily. The system is very speechless. It is really the most unfortunate system. Originally, I wanted to get back some gold coins today. Yes, the transmission is the same as you imagined, but there is a fee for using the transmission, 10,000 at a time. The system suddenly thought of a good idea, which is to pay for transmission. The black line on Luokan's face. Who would use such an expensive teleportation? The black heart system. I won't use it. Luo Chen said arrogantly. He should just walk on his legs. If he can't, let Jue run with him, which is much more reliable than the fee-based teleportation. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 860. After a night's rest, Luo Chen came to Urahara Kazuki's place to check. Ichigo was gradually able to make 2 moves with Urahara Kazuki, but he relied on brute force and didn't make any progress in skills. It won't work like this. Even if you keep practicing, you won't make any progress. Luo Chen said lightly. Kazuki Urahara naturally knew about this, but the time was tight and the task was heavy, so he could only give Ichigo some physical training. Well, Ichigo and I have done 2 tricks. We can't use the power of the god of death, how about using only the sword? Luo Chen suggested that as a ninja, he has deep knowledge in taijutsu. Ku-22 Hara Kazuki also wanted to see what Luokan could do, so he stepped back and made room for Luokan. Luo Chen held the Zanpakuto and said to Ichigo seriously, I'm going to go. Luokan directly activated his greatest strength, and exuded a pressing aura behind him, which made Ichigo feel fear in his heart. Wait, I'm not ready yet. Ichigo could only barely pick up Zanyu for defense, but was suppressed by Luokan. It's too slow, speed up. Luo Chen kept slashing at Ichigo with his Zanpakuto, and frantically increased his speed. In the end, Kazuki Urahara couldn't see Luo Chen's attack clearly. Dang tilde. Ichigo's Zanpakuto fell to the ground, and Luokan stopped attacking. Luo Chen frowned and looked at Ichigo, and said seriously, how can you, as a god of death, let the Zanpakuto leave your hand and pick it up quickly? Yes. Ichigo hurriedly picked up the Zanpakuto, and as soon as he grabbed the Zanpakuto Luokan's attack, he arrived. Wow, do you want to kill me? Fortunately, Ichigo rolled forward. Otherwise he would have been slashed by Luo Chen. There is a recovery potion in the fallen dust backpack, which is why he dares to attack so swiftly. Jinta looked at Luo Chen's face twitching towards Ichigo's training and said, is he trying to kill Ichigo? Urahara Kazuki smiled lightly, feeling that the previous fallout had returned. When they met before, Luo Chen was like this when he was training. He was very strict, and he was the strongest among them. Dang tilde, Ichigo's Zanpakuto was chopped to the ground by Luokan again. Pick it up, Luo Chen said seriously. Ichigo said breathlessly, yes. The 2 of them practiced like this all morning, and Ichigo finally unleashed Zanyu's ability in order not to be knocked down by Luokan. A bandage was wrapped around the handle of the current Zanyu knife, and then it was tightly tied around Yigard's arm. That's right. You can train Zanyu like this in 1 morning. It seems that you are very capable of teaching students. Urahara Kazuki said to Luokan lightly. Luo Chen shrugged his shoulders. It was really different from what he imagined, and Ichigo's ability to develop Zanyuki's power was also an accidental discovery. I'm tired, I'll leave the rest to you. Luo Chen sighed and walked outside. Luokan returned to the ground, and Ichigo continued to exercise with Urahara Kazuki. Xiaoyu very considerately brought a towel to Luokan to wipe his sweat, while Jintai brought water and looked at Luokan with admiration. Why are you looking at me like this? Luo Chen asked embarrassedly. Mrs. Jin smiled and said to Luokan, life here is so boring, can you take us outside to fight Shu? Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 861. Xiaoyu's eyes also revealed excitement. and it could be seen that she was also tired of the boring life here. Okay, it just so happens that I need 2 little helpers. I'll talk to Kazuki Urahara later. Luo Chen said lightly. XXX. Because Urahara Kazuki and Ichigo are both doing special training, and Yuryu Ishida is also doing special training in the mountains, so all the emptiness in the town is left to Luokan to deal with. Fortunately, there are not many virtuals in the past few days. It seems that a large number of virtuals have been killed before the dust falls, but strange forces are left around them, so the virtuals are intimidated. After resting for a while, Luokan found Kazuki Urahara and told him that he would take Xiaoyu and Jinta for a walk around the street. Kazuki Urahara immediately showed his eyes as a money fan. Don't think too much, I don't care about the cost of taking care of the 2 of them. Luo Chen naturally understood what he meant and gave him a vaccination in advance. Urahara Kazuki's eyes dimmed immediately, and his attack on Ichigo became even more ferocious. Hey, don't put all your anger towards him on me, Tilda. Ichigo protested loudly, knowing that he had become a scapegoat. Kazuki Urahara ignored Ichigo's protest and continued to launch a ferocious attack on Ichigo. In this way, Luokan led Xiaoyu and Jinta to the street, but there was a harmony on the street, and there was no sign of false appearance at all. It's so boring, Jinta said lazily with her hands on the back of her head. This is not to blame for Luokan, nor is it that he did not let the emptiness come out. Besides, it's better if there are no virtual presences around, so that they don't have to fight hard. By the way, do you 2 kiddos want to fight? The corners of Luo Chen's mouth turned up, revealing an evil smile. He thought of a good idea. Xiaoyu and Jintai blinked and looked at Luokan, who brought the 2 to the place where Yi and the others were training. Yi, I'll bring you 2 sparring coaches today, Luo Chen said proudly. Yi turned his head and saw that it was Xiaoyu and Jintai, with a very embarrassed expression, thinking that Luo Chen had really found some kind of sparring for her. We didn't come here to accompany you in training, Jinta shouted excitedly. He finally got rid of Kazuki Urahara, and now he wants to be a sparring partner for Orihime and Chato, so he doesn't want to. Luokan looked at Jinta coldly and said, Urahara Kazuki has already handed over the 2 of you to me, and my words are orders. Jintai felt the aura emanating from Luo Chen's body. His body trembled instantly. He nodded quickly and agreed, regretting coming out with Luo Chen. Diaresis okay, let's start. Luokan used illusions to make both sides feel more practical. Now they are all empty in each other's eyes, and only Yi and Luokan can see their essence. There is actually a void here. Jintai was surprised. Watching Chadu excitedly took out the iron rod, and rushed over without hesitation. Chadu naturally also raised his fist and rushed out. The strength of the 2 was similar. Because of the illusion, both of them gave their full strength. Xiaoyu and Orihime were also fighting desperately, and the 2 of them also fought hard. Why did they have to work so hard? Yi looked at Luo Chen in confusion, not expecting that Luo Chen's proposal would stimulate the potential of these people. Chapter 862. Luo Chen smiled lightly and said nothing. After a while, he saw that both sides were tired before releasing the illusion. Where did the false run go? The 4 of them asked questions at the same time, and at the same time they were surprised to find that they were fighting with their companions. Luokan said seriously, you guys are really too careless. You can't just observe things with your eyes. There are many tricks that can confuse you. Yes, the 4 answered at the same time. Yi blinked and looked at Luo Chen, completely unaware of what was going on. Luo Chen quietly told Yi the truth, and Yi immediately said to Luo Chen, I didn't expect you to be a black-bellied man. Luokan was speechless for a moment. He thought Yi would praise him for being smart, but he didn't expect to be called a black-bellied man. If he had known, he wouldn't have told her. In this way, Orihime and Chato trained for a few more days under the guidance of Yaiki, and Yuryu Ishida also gained new strength to come to Luokan. Everyone gathered in front of Kazuki Urahara's store. After these days of training, your abilities have also improved, but be careful not to mess around in the soul world, it's a dangerous place. Urahara Kazuki wanted to warn these little devils in advance to avoid accidents. Knight Perhei opened a door and said, "Next, we will open the passage to the corpse and soul world, but everyone must hurry up. This door can only last for 2 minutes, if you can't get out before closing, you will be forever wandering between the world and the corpse. The space outside the soul world will never come back." "Ah, does that mean that you have traveled to another world?" Luo Chen questioned in his heart. The system would naturally give him the answer. No, if he was banished to another dimension, he wouldn't even be able to do anything about it. "Ah, then I'd better not go," Luo Chen said lightly. The rest of the people heard Luo Chen's voice and asked, "What did you just say?" Luo Chen smiled lightly, waved his hand and replied, "It's nothing, nothing, let's go quickly." Urahara Kazuki glanced at Luoken suspiciously, then walked to the door and released his soul power. I saw a dark gap immediately appeared in the middle of the door, gradually expanding outward until it filled the entire door. "Let's go quickly," Yi said loudly, jumping into the door first. Ichigo, Ishida Yuryu, Chato and Orihime rushed in each other, while Luoken was a little puzzled and blinked to look at Kazuki Urahara. "Is there really no other way to go to the soul realm?" "Idiot, of course there's no more, let me in now." It was the first time that Urahara Kazuki saw Luoken as such a mother-in-law. He pushed Luoken hard behind him and pushed Luoken directly. He sincerely hoped that he would never come to the world again. After Luoken entered the door, he found that the space here was pitch dark, and no one else could be seen at all. "Ichigo, Yaiki, where are you?" Luo Chen shouted loudly. Suddenly there was a little light ahead, and Yi's voice came from there. "I'm here, Luoken, come here quickly." Luoken ran over quickly, and was relieved to see that several of them were gathered together. "Why is it so dark here?" Luoken looked at the dark passage with only one light in front of him, and his heart was full of complaints. He didn't like this kind of scene. Yi replied helplessly, "Who made this place to lead to the soul realm, and normal people can't go there?" Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 863. Is there a torch or something? It's okay to light up a little. Luoken put forward his own idea. As soon as the voice fell, a huge fireball hit from behind, and the environment around Luoken also brightened. "Everyone, run!" Yi was immediately surprised when he saw the fireball. He didn't expect them to be so unlucky. Luoken looked at Yi suspiciously, not knowing why she was so anxious, and the fireball behind her also quickly approached in their direction. Yi explained as he ran, "This is the scavenger here. It will appear every 3 days. No matter what it is, it will turn into ashes when it touches it." "What?" As soon as Luo Chen heard this, he ran at full speed. Orihime and the others also ran frantically, while Yulong Ishida seemed to have some leg injuries due to the special training, and the speed gradually slowed down. The fireball gradually approached Ishida Yulong, and the situation was at stake. 3 days to form a shield, I refuse. Orihime suddenly ran behind Ishida Yulong and activated her ability to create a shield to resist the fireball's attack. Yi was startled, and quickly asked Luo Chen to bring people out. Seeing that the exit is in sight, there can be no casualties. Luo Chen shouted out the 9 tails, used the tails of the 9 tails to tie Orihime and Ishida Yuryu tightly, and threw them back with force to pass the exit smoothly. "Hey, do you know how dangerous it was just now? Fortunately, the fireball just hit the shield just now. If it hit Dunshin Liuhua and the others, you would die too," Yi said excitedly. Orihime stuck out her tongue in embarrassment, and said lightly, "I just saw that Ishida Yulong was in danger and wanted to save him." "Then you can't do such a dangerous thing." Yaiki was really defeated by Orihime. She didn't know the power of a scavenger at all. Ishida Yuryu apologized to Orihime because he made Orihime scolded, and it was also because he put Orihime in danger. "Okay Yi, now everyone is fine. Luo Chen said with a smile. Yi Yi sighed. Although he had gone through so many twists and turns, he finally came to the Soul Realm safely, and he could breathe a sigh of relief temporarily. Ishida Yuryu, your cloak was burned. Orihime said lightly. I saw Yulong Ishida actually took out a new cloak from his backpack and replaced the torn cloak. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Ah, you guys even brought a spare one. Ichigo couldn't help but complain. Do you still need to be so concerned about your image when you come here? Luokan is also very speechless, regardless of the fact that it is nothing to Ishida Yulong. Okay. Where should we go now? Luo Chen turned his head and asked Shang Yi. 0. Yi pointed to the house not far away and said, our ultimate goal is the Singing Ting, and Rukia is locked in there, but... Before Yoichi's words were finished, Ichigo started to act, holding the Zanpakuto and walking towards S-Lingting without hesitation. As soon as Ichigo walked a few steps, dozens of walls fell around S-Lingting, and S-Lingting was surrounded by water. Idiot, just said don't act arbitrarily. Yi shouted loudly, got a headache, and now things are getting troublesome. 100 million. Chapter 864. Not only Yuqiang descended from the sky, but there was also a big man, Danfang. Yo, who is trespassing in the spirit palace? Danfang waved a huge axe and looked in the direction of Ichigo. Orihime and the others were all terrified by Danfang, and looked at Danfang in surprise. Ichigo, come back quickly. Yi shouted loudly. She didn't want Ichigo to be hurt just after entering the Soul Realm. 260. Ichigo raised his eyebrows. He didn't feel scared at all about Danfang. On the contrary, he became excited. Hey, get out of the way, don't get in the way. Ichigo said disdainfully at Danfang, holding his Zanpakuto. Danfang laughed loudly. He hadn't been active for so long. Today, he can finally fight. He said to Ichigo, hey, you guys are a disaster. Travel of disaster. Ichigo didn't know what it was, and frowned at Danfang. Yi explained to them, humans who come to the Soul Realm without authorization is a disaster. The gods of death will not let go of the disaster easily, so everyone runs away quickly. Ichigo didn't listen to Yuichi's words at all. How could he leave when he finally came here? He would never leave unless Rukia was rescued. Yeah, I met my opponent so soon. Luo Chen said indifferently from the side. He felt from the spiritual pressure that Danfang was not weak, but compared to Ichigo's spiritual pressure, it was much worse. Luokan, hurry up and stop them. Danfang will kill all those who trespass into the S-Lingting. And you don't know his strength, right? Yi said excitedly. Luo Chen smiled lightly, so that Yi didn't have to worry. It was precisely because he knew the power of the Danfang that he let Ichigo go to fight with confidence. Luokan. Yi looked at Luokan suspiciously, wondering why he had such a strong trust in Ichigo. Luokan waved to Ichigo and said loudly, Ichigo, come on, get rid of him quickly and we can go in. Ichigo answered impatiently, but Danfang laughed loudly. It wasn't that easy to pass him. Little devil, what's your name? You look like a god of death, right? Danfang was a little surprised when he saw Ichigo's clothes. Ichigo replied disdainfully, Ichigo Kurosaki, Shinigami, hurry up and make a move. Ichigo was impatient, and he wanted to hurry up and save Rukia. Seeing that Ichigo was so arrogant and angry, Danfang raised his Zanpakuto and slashed towards Ichigo. The huge Zanpakuto suddenly stirred up the dust on the ground. There was smoke everywhere, and the land around Ichigo was cracked, which made Yulong Ishida and the others worried. Ichigo, are you okay? Orihime shouted loudly. Danfang laughed out loud. No one could withstand his blow, thinking that Ichigo had already been defeated by him. Ah, I'm fine. Ichigo jumped out of the dust holding his Zanpakuto, and answered Orihime indifferently. The performance of the Night One-on-One Guardian was very surprising. I didn't expect Ichigo to be able to withstand the attack of the Saidanfang, which was really surprising. Look, Ichigo has become much stronger. Luo Chen said lightly, looking forward to Ichigo's first battle in the Soul Society. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 865. XXX. Orihime, Ishida Yuryu, and Chadu were happy to see that Ichigo was fine, and hurried up to help. With a sound of boom, Saidanfang raised a piece of land with the huge Zanpakuto on the ground, blocking Ishida Yulong and the others from advancing. Saidanfang didn't want others to disturb the battle. Ichigo, Ishida Yulong shouted worriedly. The corners of Ichigo's mouth were raised upwards. Not being disturbed was exactly what he expected, and this time he could fight well. Is there really no problem with Ichigo? Yoichi asked worriedly, still a little worried. Luokan laughed lightly, but on Ichigo's side, he wasn't worried at all, but it was strange that the people around him disappeared. Why did they hide when they saw us? Luo Chen asked suspiciously. Yi sighed helplessly, thinking that Luo Chen would be able to remember the past when he arrived in the Soul Realm, but it still seemed to be of no use. Soul Realm is divided into Lu Soul Realm and S Ling Ting. Lu Soul Street lives in some ordinary souls, while S Ling Ting is the god of death, so in order to prevent ordinary souls from entering S Ling Ting, the door was set up. And the gatekeeper is Si Danfang. Yi explained to Luo Chen in detail. The black line on Luo Chen's face, he didn't seem to be asking this. I know your question. Liuhun Street is still in awe of the existence of the god of death, and it can even be said that they are a little scared, so they hide. Yi continued to explain. Luokan nodded. No wonder all the people suddenly disappeared on the bustling street. Isn't the god of death protecting them? Why did they fear the god of death? Luo Chen was surprised by this, and was actually afraid of the person who protected him. Yi sighed. It seemed that there was really no hope for Luo Chen's recovery, so he could only continue to explain. Although the god of death is protecting these souls, there are also many gods of death who look down on these souls, so they are afraid. What? It turns out that the god of death is also divided into good and bad. Luo Chen shrugged lightly. He still understood this kind of truth. This time, it was Yi's turn with a black line on her face, and she didn't know what to say. Luokan turned his attention to Ichigo again, and saw Ichigo carrying Saidanfang's attack. Hey Ichigo, what are you doing? Beat him quickly, don't waste time. Luokan shouted loudly. If Ichigo didn't get rid of Saidanfang again, he would want to take action. Ichigo's impatient voice came from a distance. Shut up, I'm already fighting, don't disturb us. Yes, please don't waste our time. Luo Chen said with a relaxed expression, pulling Yi to the side of Ishida Yulong and the others. Ishida Yulong asked worriedly, aren't we really going to help Ichigo? Luokan nodded affirmatively and replied, yes, Ichigo will take care of him, we just need to wait a while. Orihime had a worried look on her face. She wanted to know how things were going on Ichigo's side. I'll show you. Luokan picked up Orihime and jumped over the rock, just in time to see the battle between Ichigo and Saidanfang. Luokan. Saidanfang was very surprised to see Luokan jumping out holding Orihime, and was stunned for a while. Luo Chen tilted his head slightly and asked, do you know me too? Saidanfang nodded, and he was very happy to see Luokan. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 866. Luokan was very happy when he saw that Saidanfang knew him, so it seemed that he didn't have to wait for Ichigo to defeat him before he could enter the Spirit Palace. Then can you open the door for me? Luo Chen said with a smile. Saidanfang agreed at once, and Luokan instantly became happy. However, Saidanfang went on to say, Lord Luokan can naturally pass, but these calamities cannot enter. What? Why can't he come in and we can't? Ichigo was angry at this kind of discrimination, and he must defeat this Saidanfang and enter the Soul Realm. Idiot, how can you Brigade of Misfortune be compared with Lord Luokan? let's see how I can destroy you. Si Danfang said and launched an attack on Ichigo. Ichigo raised the Zanpakuto with both hands to defend, and with a slap, the two Zanpakuto collided and made a crisp sound. Ichigo-san. Orihime excitedly wanted to step forward to help, but she came to Soul World to help Ichigo. Ichigo shouted loudly, "Don't come here, I can handle this big guy alone tilde. Don't be too arrogant, I admit that you have some ability, but as long as I'm here, you don't want to break in." Saying that, Saidanfang took out a Zanpakuto from his body and looked at Ichigo hard. Dang dang. Saidanfang kept attacking Ichigo with Zanpakuto alternately, leaving Ichigo no chance to fight back. Ishida Yuryu was very worried when he heard the fighting sound inside, and asked Orihime loudly about the situation inside. It's okay, give Ichigo a little more time and he'll be fine soon. Luo Chen said lightly. Yi took this opportunity to jump on the stone too. Seeing that Ichigo was just blindly defending, he really didn't know where Luo Chen got his confidence. You little bastard can actually gain the respect of Lord Luoken. As long as I defeat you, I will be able to make Lord Luoken respect you. Si Danfang said so, and his attack became even more ruthless. Every blow used 100% of his strength. Yihu's brows furrowed tightly. He had been listening to what Saidanfang said about Lord Luoken since just now. The two of them were clearly cousins, yet they were treated so differently, which made Yihu feel a serious imbalance in his heart. Enough is enough, Ichigo shouted, pushing back the Zanpakuto of Saidanfang with all his strength, and then slashed hard at Saidanfang. Boom! Saidanfang was beaten by Ichigo and stepped back several steps. Ichigo is angry now, and no one can stop him. Luoken said with great interest. Look, Ichigo can do it, and the battle will be over soon. Saidanfang became serious after hearing Luoken's words. Holding to Zanpakuto, he shouted loudly, Diaresis 10 Saidans are sacrificed. The 10 Saidan sacrifice is the last trick of the Saidanfang. He once had this trick to kill more than 100 virtuals. From this, we can see the power of this trick. Ichigo, run away, Yi shouted loudly, breaking into a cold sweat for Ichigo. Naturally, Yihu won't let Yihu go to Saidanfang. This is the only way for him to get Luoken's approval, so he won't let Yihu go. Ichigo never thought of escaping. Facing the double axe, he rushed forward with Zanyu without hesitation, using his enormous strength to fight. There was a loud bang, and a burst of gunpowder smoke appeared in the area of Ichigo and Saidanfang. Ichigo, Orihime shouted in surprise. She felt the power of the blow from Saidanfang just now, and guessed that Ichigo would definitely be unable to resist. Chapter 867. The smoke of gunpowder gradually dissipated, and Ichigo looked at Saidanfang proudly holding his Zanpakuto, and the Zanpakuto in Saidanfang's hand were all shattered. How could this be? Saidanfang looked at the Zanpakuto in both hands in surprise, but he didn't expect that he would also be defeated. Ichigo said proudly, No, I'm sorry, since you insisted on blocking us, I can only smash your Zanpakuto. Saidanfang didn't want to accept this reality at first, but when he heard Ichigo say it, he was very angry. He raised his fist and rushed towards Ichigo. With a bang, Saidanfang suddenly sat on the ground, and Orihime asked in confusion, why did he sit on the ground by himself? Saidanfang scratched his head and said, I must have tripped over something. Holding the Zanpakuto, Ichigo laughed and said to Saidanfang, Yes, you tripped by me. Impossible, it's absolutely impossible. Saidanfang definitely didn't want to admit that he was defeated by Ichigo, and looked at Luoken with helpless eyes. Luoken sighed helplessly. It seemed that the match had already been decided. Broken. Luoken said something quietly, and saw that the rocks were all turned into powder. Ishida Yulong and Chadu could also see the situation on Ichigo's side. Saidanfang admit it, you lost. Luoken said to Saidanfang firmly. Saidanfang's eyes were instantly filled with surprise. No matter how he denied this time, Luo Chen's words made him unable to deny it. Yes, Lord Luoken, I lost. Si Danfang's head gradually lowered, feeling disappointed with his performance in front of Luokan. Yi Yi was very surprised that Ichigo defeated Si Danfang so easily. After all, not everyone can be responsible for guarding the S-Linting Gate. Not only must you have a strong fighting force, but you must also have a firm willpower. Thinking that Ichigo had completely defeated Si Danfang from these 2 points, Luokan walked up to Si Danfang and said, "You have performed well, now help us open the door." When Si Danfang heard Luokan's compliment, she instantly became happy. She stood up and scratched her head and said, "Yes, Lord Luokan, since I lose, I will help you open the door." After speaking, Si Danfang walked towards the huge stone gate, and lifted the stone gate upwards with both hands. Luokan suddenly felt a very powerful force on the opposite side of the door, which made him have a bad feeling. "Wait, Si Danfang." Luokan hurriedly stopped Si Danfang. But after a loud cry, Exodanfang had already raised the door, and in front of them was a silver-haired death god. Ichimaru Jin. Yi Yi was surprised when she saw Ichimaru Jin. She didn't want a confrontation with Ichimaru Jin. Ichimaru Jin squinted and smiled, but it gave off a very sinister feeling. "Who is this guy? He looks disgusting." Luo Chen said his thoughts directly. Si Danfang was also surprised by the appearance of Ichimaru Jin, and didn't know what to do for a while. On the other hand, Ichigo was the first to run towards S-Linting and attacked Ichimaru Jin. "Ichigo, come back quickly!" Yi Yi shouted loudly. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 868. Yoichi's words did not make Ichigo rush back, but instead rushed towards Ichijinmaru with all his strength. Ichi-Yinmaru smiled and took out the Zanpakudo, mercilessly slashed in the direction of Ichigo, and a very sharp sword energy was fired. The speed of the sword energy was extremely fast, and Ichigo couldn't dodge it at all. At the critical moment, Ishida Yulong shot an arrow that reluctantly changed the direction of the sword's attack, and Ichigo was not fatally injured. "You bastard!" Ichigo stared at Ichi-Ginmaru, full of unwillingness, and wanted to rush over again to teach Ichi-Ginmaru a lesson. Seeing that one blow did not kill Ichigo, Ichi-Ginmaru released another blow. This time Ichi-Ginmaru released a lot of sword energy. When Luokan appeared in front of Ichigo in time to block the attack, and all the sword energy was turned into ashes under Luokan's 9 tails. "Yo, I didn't expect Lord Luokan to come back, what a rare visitor." Shi-Yinmaru made a very annoying voice, and his tone was also contrived. Luokan glanced at Ichi-Yinmaru and ignored him, turned to Ichigo and said, "Leave quickly, you are not his opponent yet." Why is Ichigo willing to leave like this? He finally entered the spiritual court, how could he go back without saving Rukia? "I do not." "Ichigo, hurry up and leave, you will drag us all down if you continue like this." Yaiki rebuked Ichigo loudly. She knew Ichijinmaru's power, so she chose to retreat. Ichigo glanced at Ichi-Ginmaru reluctantly, clenched his fists tightly, turned around and ran in the direction of Yoichi. Luokan was also about to leave, but Ichi-Yinmaru didn't seem to want to let Luokan go, and charged towards Luokan with his Zanpakudo. Luokan turned around and looked at Shi-Yinwan with a cold look. Shi-Yinwan stood in the middle of the road and was surprised. He had never seen Luokan's indifferent look before. "If you don't want to die, don't chase after him," Luo Chen said indifferently. Ichi-Yinmaru showed a look of disdain on his face, and this displeased feeling must be vented. Although he had nothing to do with Luokan, the Si Danfang was different. "As the gatekeeper, I didn't let you let people in," Ichi-Yinmaru said and launched an attack on Si Danfang. The sharp sword chi directly pierced Si Danfang's arm, blood spurted out all at once, and the gate was closed because Si Danfang lost its strength. Beg flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Si Danfang, are you alright? Luokan frowned tightly, disgusted by Shinmaru's actions. There was a huge hole in Si Danfang's arm, and the bleeding couldn't stop at all. Luo Chen hurriedly searched for medicine in his backpack. However, Orihime stepped forward and activated the power of Dunshin Liuhua to help Si Danfeng recover from the wound. 0. Thank you. Si Danfeng felt the pain in his arm gradually disappear, and when he opened his eyes, he saw that Orihime was saving him, and he was very grateful. XXX. Luokan said to Si Danfeng, take a good rest, don't worry about other things, I will definitely repay you for this revenge. It is enough for Si Danfeng to have Luokan's words, there is absolutely no need for Luokan to avenge him. Lord Luokan. Si Danfeng looked at Luokan excitedly, with tears in his eyes. Luokan smiled awkwardly, he was not the one who treated him, it was Orihime who he should be thankful for. After a period of treatment, Si Danfeng's injury finally improved, but he still couldn't move. 100 million. Chapter 869. At this time, the village chief of the village approached Luokan and the others. You guys come with me. Luokan looked at the village chief suspiciously, and before they knew it, people from Liuhun Street were already standing around them. Si Danfeng is our hero, you rescued him, so we won't embarrass you. Come with me at ease. The village chief saw Luokan's worry and explained. Yi nodded a little and asked Luo Chen 260 and the others to follow. Just like that, Luo Chen and his party came to the village chief's house. Thank you for your kindness, but won't taking us in will cause you trouble? Luo Chen asked worriedly, he didn't want the village chief to be targeted by death for taking in them. The village chief shook his head. These souls have never appeared in the eyes of the gods of death, so the gods of death don't care about what's going on here. These gods of death are really hateful, Ichigo said indignantly, he was also tired of the behavior of the gods of death. The village chief couldn't help laughing. Originally, he thought that the gods of death were the same as the gods of death in S-Linting, but now it doesn't seem to be the case. It's getting late, you guys should rest first. The village chief said lightly. Yi stood up and thanked the village chief, and then said to a few people, I'm going to find someone, so I'll leave first. Don't run around, especially Ichigo. Yi was most worried about Yihu, and especially told Luokan to take care of Yihu. Ichigo impatiently urged Yoichi to leave quickly, so that he didn't need to be watched by others, it was really unfree. Luo Chen smiled and agreed, waved his hand and said goodbye to Yi. Not long after Yi left, the door was opened again, and a little boy ran in and shouted to Chadu, Uncle, it's really you. Chadu was stunned for a moment. Facing this little boy, he felt familiar, but somewhat unfamiliar. It's me, Uncle, I'm Shibata. The man said excitedly. When he heard that the Brigade of Trouble had come to the Soul realm, he guessed it was them, so he quickly ran over to check. When Chadu heard that it was Shibata, he immediately stood up, hugged Shibata, and said excitedly, it's really good that it's you. Luokan is also happy for the reunion of the two of them, but Ichigo is full of worries. Uncle, let me show you the world of corpses. Shibata said excitedly, he wanted to repay Chadu's kindness to him in this world. Luokan agreed with Chadu and Shibata to leave. After all, Chadu is an honest and loyal person, and he is completely different from Ichigo. Orihime suddenly stood up. She was still a little concerned about the injury of Si Danfeng, so she went to check it out. Orihime is really gentle, do you need me to help? Luokan asked with a smile. Orihime shook her head, just leave the treatment to her, no need for help from others. Just like that, Orihime and Chado left. Ishida Yulong, thank you for saving Ichigo just now. If it wasn't for your arrow, Ichigo would have died on the spot. Luokan said with sincere gratitude. When Ichigo heard this, he immediately became excited and raised his fist to refute Luokan's words. But Yulong Ishida nodded slightly. He came here to help Ichigo, and this little thing is nothing at all. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 870. Although Ichigo didn't want to admit it, he still expressed his gratitude to Ishida Yuryu. It's nothing, I just can't stand the god of death. As for saving you, it was just an accident. Ishida Yulong said stubbornly. Ichigo's courtesy towards Ishida Yulong disappeared in an instant. He raised his hand and shouted loudly at Ishida Yulong, I'm really sorry for disturbing you to fight against death. Ishida Yulong pushed his glasses and said indifferently, it's okay. Huh, Ichigo got a lot of energy, and roared at Yulong Ishida. Luokan shook his head helplessly, stood up and wanted to go out to hide from the deserted place, but he didn't want to hear the quarrel between the two. 22. Luokan came outside and saw that Orihime had been treating Saidanfang. I was injured, so I wanted to come forward and help. Don't push yourself too hard, Orihime, take a rest. Luo Chen advised. At this time, Orihime's head was sweating profusely due to the excessive use of strength, and her face was very ugly, but she still insisted on helping Saidanfang with treatment. It's okay, I can still hold on, I will definitely cure him. Orihime shook her head, this was the only thing she could do, and she didn't want to see anyone die. Luokan sighed helplessly, took out a recovery pill from his backpack and gave it to Orihime to eat. Hey, Luokan, what did you give me? Why do I feel like my power is back? Orihime asked in surprise. Luokan smiled lightly and explained, the strength did not come back, it just helped you recover your physical strength. I'm afraid you won't be able to hold on, so you should pay attention. Yes, I will protect myself well. Orihime laughed and continued to help Saidanfang with treatment. Luokan shook his head, seeing Orihime like this, he really didn't know what to say. At this time, Shibata brought Chadu back here, and there was a little boy beside him. Well, who is he? Luokan asked suspiciously, why did Kung Fu Chadu bring back one more child in the blink of an eye? Didn't he kidnap and sell it? The boy introduced himself, I'm Shibata's brother, please give me more advice. It's great that you still have a brother, Chada. Luokan always thought Chada was the only son, but he didn't expect to have a brother. Shibata looked a little sad, shook his head and explained, no, Shibata stopped halfway through his words, looking down and looking very sad. Shibata's brother explained, I'm not Shibata's biological brother. I was also killed in the same place as Shibata, so they formed a family. What does this mean? Luokan was going to be confused, there are really many differences between the soul world and the human world. Chadu said in a strong voice, every family here is made up of people who don't know each other, and they all have something in common. Luokan nodded, and gradually understood. No wonder Shibata had that kind of expression when he saw Chadu, he seemed really happy. It's okay, I believe your mother will meet you soon, be happy. Luo Chen said while rubbing Chai Tian's head. Shibata nodded vigorously. Shibata's brother saw that it was getting late, so he asked Shibata to go home together. Then uncle, brother Luokan, I will leave first. Shibata waved and left. Luokan nodded and smiled, saying goodbye to Shibata and his brother. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 871. Looking at Chadu next to him, although his hair covered his eyes, Luo Chen could feel that Chadu must have tears in his eyes now. Chadu, you don't have to do this. Be happy, we have already come to the soul realm, and there is a chance we can meet. Luokan comforted Chadu. Chadu didn't say anything, he nodded and turned to walk into the village chief's house. When night fell, Yi Yi also came back, and the village chief prepared the meal enthusiastically. What were you doing just now? Luo Chen asked with concern. Yi Yi replied while eating, I went to find someone who can help us enter the spiritual court. Well, isn't there only those walls in Lingting? Let's just jump over it. Luokan said his thoughts lightly. There was a moment of embarrassment on Yi Yi's face, and she was defeated by Luo Chen's innocent thoughts. The village chief explained to Luokan, although the Lingting looks like nothing from the outside, in fact, there is a spherical spirit child around the S-linting protecting it, and normal people can't get in tilde. It's a pity that it's so troublesome. Luo Chen was a little disappointed, and thought that Rukia would be able to enter the S-linting tomorrow. Yi Yi shouted excitedly, how could it be so easy? If that's the case, what do you need to do? Me. Luo Chen tilted his head slightly, not knowing what Yi Yi was referring to. After hearing Yi Yi's words, the village chief's face changed. He pointed at Luokan and said excitedly, you are Lord Luokan. The villain really has eyes and does not know Mount High. I have neglected you. Lord Luokan, please forgive me. When Luo Chen heard this, he became even more puzzled. He turned his head to look at Yi Yi, perfectly not understanding what the situation was. Yi Yi sighed and told the village chief not to get too excited. Now Luo Chen has lost his memory and has forgotten everything about the past, so don't be afraid. No, Lord Luokan is Lord Luokan, we will remember it for the rest of our lives. The village chief said firmly. What's the situation? Isn't Luokan your cousin? Ishida Yulong asked suspiciously, why did Luokan suddenly become Lord Death again? How did Ichigo know? He was still dumbfounded, staring at Luo Chen's explanation. Hey, what's the situation? How can I explain this? Luo Chen helplessly searched the system for a solution. The system said embarrassedly, I didn't expect the owner of this body to have such a past. He made a mistake, he made a mistake. In Luokan's heart, he felt that a group of grass and mud horses galloped past, how he wanted to swear. Diaresis, now is not the time to say this, hurry up and find a way for me. Luokan wouldn't lie. Yi Yi saw Luo Chen's embarrassed expression and said solemnly, this is a secret, you can't know it, or you will be killed. Looking at Yi Yi's cold eyes, Luo Chen couldn't help shivering, and took 2 steps back. The rest of the people couldn't bear it anymore, they lowered their heads to eat, and stopped asking about Luokan. Luo Chen didn't know what to say anymore. Thanks to Yi Yi, he was finally saved, so he cast a grateful look. Commit. Chapter 872. When everyone was concentrating on eating, there was a loud noise outside the door. Did something happen outside? Luokan asked suspiciously, put down the tableware and stood up and walked out. However, before he could reach the door, a person broke through the door and fell in, rolling several times on the ground. Everyone was surprised, and even Yi Yi was frightened by this scene. The village chief said, Ganju, you're here. Ganju immediately came to fight with a carp, climbed up on the ground, smiled at the village chief, then turned around and said to his mount, it seems that I still need to train well, and then throw me out and I'll put it away. You bake it and eat it. The mount made a sound from its nostrils. When Luo Chen and the others saw it, the mount of Ganju turned out to be a wild boar, and they couldn't believe it. It's too exaggerated, even a wild boar can ride. Ishida Yulong looked at Yoichi when he said this, and had a strange idea in his heart. Yi Yi immediately shouted loudly, don't look at me, I'm different from them. Suddenly, Ganju saw Ichigo dressed as a god of death, and immediately shouted loudly, why is the god of death here? Get out of here quickly. Ichigo was eating well and was disturbed by others. Before he lost his temper, he was scolded first. What am I doing here? You have destroyed my appetite. Ichigo shouted excitedly. Griffin doesn't care so much, no one can understand his hatred for the god of death. XXX. Gansu suddenly attacked Ichigo, and Ichigo mercilessly pulled out his Zanpakuto to fight back. The two of them fought so hard that the house was about to be demolished, and the village's face became very ugly. Hey, why did you only attack me and not him? Ichigo pointed at Luokan. Ganju turned his head and saw that Luokan was not wearing the clothes of the god of death, and said naturally, because you are the only god of death, hurry up and take your life. Ichigo didn't understand very much. People in this soul realm have a sick mind, and they can only recognize people by their clothes. You two are enough. If you want to fight, I will tear down the village chief's house and I will feed the two of you to the pigs. Luo Chen roared domineeringly. When the village chief saw that Luo Chen was angry, he immediately knelt on the ground and begged Luo Chen to stop his anger. "Ah, it's okay, village chief, don't worry, I'm not targeting you," Luo Chen said and glanced at Ichigo and Ganju. The two shuddered at the same time and agreed to go out to fight. Just like that, the two ran outside to fight, and Ganju's younger brother couldn't help but want to attack after seeing Ichigo. "Don't intervene, it's my business and him," Ganju said firmly. He must use his own strength to defeat the god of death. Ichigo doesn't care that much, no matter how many people come, he won't be afraid. Ishida Yulong and a few others also came out. They were surprised to see that each of Ganji's men was riding a wild boar. He pointed at them and said, "Wild boar." When the wild boar heard Ishida Yulong's voice, they all looked at him, staring at Ishida Yulong with a very disdainful look. Ishida Yulong swallowed his saliva, took a step forward subconsciously, raised his hand and pulled the bow to shoot an arrow. "Hey, what do you want to do?" Luokan grabbed Yulong Ishida in time. Ishida Yulong said tremblingly, "I used to target wild boars when I practiced archery, so now I can't control it." Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 873. Luokan was speechless at the answer given by Ishida Yulong. What was the reason, and what the hell was this strange conditioned reflex? Gansu suddenly used a strange technique and even buried Ichigo's Zanpakuto on the ground, and Ichigo couldn't pull it out. Ganju said proudly, "HMPH, if you gods of death don't have Zanpakuto, they are nothing, let's see what you do now." Damn it. Seeing that the Zanpakuto couldn't be drawn, Ichigo immediately gave up the Zanpakuto and attacked Gansu with his bare hands. Ichigo's skills are very good. He used to fight the world with his bare hands before, so the absence of the Zanpakuto has no effect on him at all. "Ah, it seems that this battle will be fought for a long time, let's go back to eat first," Luo Chen said helplessly. The village chief immediately gave up the position of the door and made a gesture of invitation to Luo Chen. At this moment, a bell suddenly rang in the distance. Ganju immediately gave up the game after hearing the sound, and said to Ichigo, "Don't run, I will come back to find you for a showdown." Speaking of which, the Ganju got on the wild boar and ran away. Ichigo, facing Ganju the direction that ran away, shouted loudly, "Idiot, I won't run, I must beat you all over the place to find your teeth." Luokan looked at the village chief suspiciously, not knowing what the situation was. With Ganju's departure, Luokan and the others returned to the house to continue eating, but Ichigo was so angry that he couldn't eat anymore, and he was still brooding about the battle just now. "Ichigo, you really don't want to eat anymore, you'll be hungry," Orihime persuaded gently. Ichigo shook his head firmly, all his mind was on how to defeat Ganju, and he couldn't eat at all. "Orihime, leave him alone, he will eat when he is hungry." Yi glanced at Ichigo disdainfully, feeling a headache for someone like him. Orihime nodded and continued eating. Luokan was very curious about the Ganju just now, and suddenly appeared and suddenly ran away. It was really inexplicable. "Village, who the hell is Ganju, and why did he come here?" Luokan asked his own question. The village chief immediately replied respectfully, "Gansu is a very well-behaved child." Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. What, he's still a good boy. I think that stinky boy deserves to be beaten. Next time I see him, I must beat him to the ground. Ichigo grabbed the village chief's words and said. Yi turned towards Ichigo's head and shouted angrily to Ichigo, "Listen to what others have to say, don't interrupt." Cut. Ichigo looked aside unconvinced. The village chief continued, "Gantel is trying very hard to learn his skills in order to protect the people of the village. Today, he is only here to ask if there is anything that needs help in the village." "Oh, then he is really a kind and good boy," Luokan said with a smile. If this is the case, Luokan can understand why Ganju hates death so much. It should be someone who wants to improve himself by defeating death, and then better protect the people of the village. 100 million. Chapter 874. The next day, Yi woke up Luo Chen and his group early in the morning, announcing that they were going to find Zibo Kong. Shiba Sora, who is that? Ichigo asked suspiciously. He still had to wait for Ganju to return to continue fighting, so he didn't want to leave. Yi explained, if you want to enter the Spirit Court, then you have to ask her for help. I have already explored the way yesterday, and it is easy to find it. It turns out that Mr. Yaiki went to look for help yesterday. It's really hard for you. Orihime quickly changed her clothes and was ready to set off. Chadu, Luokan, and Ishida Yulong were also ready one after another, and only Ichigo was left sitting on his knees and motionless. Ichigo, are you not feeling well? Orihime asked with concern. She was planning to use her strength to help Ichigo recover. Ichigo said firmly, let's go first, I'll catch up with you right away. Ah, Luo Chen and the others were all surprised. Usually when it comes to saving Rukia, he is the most active, but what happened today, he even let them leave first. Ichigo continued, I have to wait for that hateful guy, Ganju, or he will definitely think that I am afraid to run away if he doesn't see me when he comes back. Strange, when did you care so much about other people's opinions? Luo Chen asked suspiciously, but the usual Ichigo doesn't care about other people's eyes, just what others want to say. Ichigo glanced at his mouth, only that guy he didn't want to admit defeat. Gansu is the second person who can let Zanpakuto free from Ichigo's hands, so Ichigo must defeat him to prove himself. Don't be awkward, let's go quickly. Luokan couldn't understand Ichigo's thoughts. Wasn't he just an opponent? He never fought before, and he didn't have a piece of meat. Ichigo doesn't care about that much. It's embarrassing to ask Ichigo and the others to leave quickly, he will arrive later. Luokan and several people said that they couldn't change Ichigo's thoughts, which made them very helpless, and in the end they even resorted to violence. It's a pity that Ichigo actually hugged the pillar in the village chief's house tightly, showing a posture of coexisting and dying with the pillar. Luokan and the others were afraid that if they continued to work harder, they would destroy the village chief's home, so they gave up. What should I do? Ichigo refuses to go on the road with us. Luo Chen reluctantly cast his eyes on Yi. Without saying a word, Yi rushed to Ichigo, raised his claws and launched an attack, subduing Ichigo in 3 or 2 strokes. What are you doing? Ichigo covered his face in pain and questioned Yaiki excitedly. Yi reprimanded Ichigo with a serious expression. Now is not the time for you to fool around. If you don't pay attention to every minute and second, Rukia will be killed soon. Ichigo glanced at his mouth, still a little unwilling in his heart, but when he saw Yi raising his paw again, he felt a little guilty. I see. The village chief, if that guy comes back again, you must tell him that I didn't leave because of fear. This time the battle has not yet been decided. Ichigo murmured to the village chief. A lot of words. The village chief laughed helplessly. Ichigo said so much that he would have a lack of brain capacity. Now, I quickly interrupted Ichigo and said, everyone, please walk slowly and be careful on the road. Saying that, the village chief sent Ichigo and others out of the house, and he was relieved to see that they were far away. Death is really hard to deal with, it's really troublesome. The village chief couldn't help but complain, recalling the scene just now, he couldn't help shaking his head. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 875. Just like that, Luokan and his group started their journey to find Zibo Kong. Guess what kind of person Shiba Sora is and what he looks like? Orihime was also bored and asked a topic. Now Ishida Yulong and Chadu started their own imagination and described what they came up with, but they all felt a little strange. Ichigo was also attracted by their topic, raised his head and began to imagine what Shiba Sora was like. Buck teeth, pointed ears. Ichigo described the appearance of a monster. Luo Chen and the others were speechless for a moment. No matter how they looked, they didn't look like Yi-Yi's friends, they looked like devils. Several people have also been gone for a while, the sun is about to reach the middle, and Luokan and the others have not yet found Zibo Konghei's home. Yi-Yi, is Zibo Konghei's house really in this direction? Luokan couldn't help but wonder. Last night, it took half a day to run back and forth, but they had been walking for a long time, and they didn't even see a shadow, and there were no buildings around, and all they could see was an empty land. Yi-Yi said disdainfully, "Of course that's right. If it wasn't for taking care of you guys, I would have arrived a long time ago." Ishida Yulong and the others laughed awkwardly when they heard it, but they became a burden. "Yi-Yi, don't say that, it's very hurtful," Luo Chen quickly reminded Yi-Yi. Yi-Yi was very forthright and didn't care at all, glanced at Ishida Yulong and the others and continued, "Zibo Konghei's house is very easy to find, you can see it from afar." "Really?" Orihime hurriedly stretched her neck and looked around, hoping to see a little shadow, so she had a goal in her heart. Unfortunately, Orihime didn't find any traces, but only saw the endless loess grass. "Are we going to go for a long time?" Orihime was a little tired, and her mouth felt dry. Yi-Yi said lightly, "At your speed, you will be there before dark." "What, so far?" The corners of Luokan's mouth twitched, and they walked more than half of the distance before they walked for a long time. Ichigo and the others were also surprised, so they decided to rest in place. "Hey, your speed is already very slow, how long will you rest?" Yi-Yi said seriously. Luokan sighed helplessly, and now let the Nine Tails help them. "Nine Tails have worked hard for you." Luo Chen summoned the Nine Tails and asked Ichigo and the others to do all of them. Ichigo frowned and complained, "Really, why didn't you use this method earlier?" Yi-Yi gave Ichigo a fist without saying a word, and made him talk so much nonsense. She knew that it would take a lot of strength for Luokan to summon the Nine Tails, so she couldn't bear it. Luo Chen smiled lightly. In fact, he summoned the Nine Tails with no effort at all. Nine Tails were originally an individual, but they just lived in his body. If other gods of death were to solve the problem, then the situation would not necessarily be the case. Just like that, Ichigo and his party arrived in 5 minutes after Kuo's full-speed drive, and they saw Shiba Sokaku's house from a distance. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 876. It's really far away to see Shiba Sokaku's house. Ishida Yulong couldn't help but complain. Now in front of Luokan and the others is Zibo Konghei's house, and they saw a huge banner hanging above Zibo Konghei's house, which said Zibo Kong. "I'll say it's easy to find," Yi-Yi said proudly, but she found Shiba Kong all at once. Luokan twitched the corners of his mouth awkwardly, not knowing what to say. "Let's go in quickly." Ichigo didn't care so much, and walked directly towards the gate of Shiba Sora's house. However, as soon as Ichigo approached, two figures suddenly emerged from the house and questioned Ichigo loudly. XXX. "Hey, little devil, this is Zibo Konghei's home. If you are sensible, leave quickly, or don't blame us for being rude." Ichigo frowned and picked up the Zanpakuto. He was not afraid of threats at all, even a little excited. When Jin and Yin saw Ichigo full of fighting spirit, they immediately launched an attack. The two held each other and slammed hard on Ichigo. With the sound of tilde bang, a huge pit immediately appeared on the ground. Ichigo, Orihime ran over when she saw this scene, completely forgetting that she was thirsty. Ishida Yulong and Chadu followed closely behind, and Luokan had to take back the Nine Tails before they could hurry on their way. Otherwise, others who saw such a big nine tail would definitely scare people. The smoke of gunpowder gradually dissipated, and Ichigo avoided it in time, raised his Zanpakuto and rushed out. "Little devil, you don't know whether to live or die. Look at how powerful we are," Jin said and lifted the silver, then spun the silver vigorously, and then aimed at it was thrown in the direction of Quan Ichigo. Silver's weight is already heavy, and with the strength of gold, this attack is even more swift. 3 days to form a shield, I refuse. Orihime quickly activated the power of Shield Shunliuhua to create a shield in front of Ichigo. Dang tilde, Yin's fist hit the shield tightly, but the shield was still cracked, and Orihime couldn't hold it anymore. Ichigo, hurry up, I can't hold it anymore. Orihime shouted loudly. Yihu frowned tightly. He was actually protected by a girl, which made him have no face, so he jumped up with his legs, jumped over the silver, and raised his Zanpakudo to stab him. Go down. Both of you, stop me. Yi shouted loudly. She came a little late, and these people made such a fuss, it was really exaggerated. Ichigo finally put the knife away, and Jin was very surprised to see Yaiki. Master Yi, why are you here? Are you looking for Master Zebo Kong? Yin asked respectfully. Yi nodded and asked the two of them to hurry in and report. Diaresis yes. Jin and Yin walked into the house together, and Luokan also rushed over at this time. He saw Yi's face was very ugly, and there were traces of fighting on the side. Ah, what's the matter with you guys? Has anyone made Yi angry? Luo Chen asked lightly, feeling a little depressed in the atmosphere. Ishida Yulong and the others silently shifted their gazes to Ichigo, and Ichigo frowned suddenly, took a step back to Wang Hao, and shouted loudly to several people, "Don't look at it too. It was they who provoked me first, and I was just self-defense." Yi glanced at Ichigo disdainfully. She would believe Ichigo's words were ghosts. After a while, Jin and Yin came out, and they walked in front to lead the way for Yi and others. Well, this house is actually underground. No wonder there is only one banner outside. Luo Chen said dong dong in surprise. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 877. Before he came in, he was curious about how Zebo Kong lived in such a small place, but now he understands it. Ishida Yulong and others also understood, and turned their heads to see the surrounding scenery. After a few people walked for a while, they finally arrived at their destination. Jin said at the door, "Master Yi has already arrived. Let them in." Shiba Sora's voice came from inside the room. The door slowly opened, and Ichigo and the others looked inside the door curiously, wanting to see what Shiba Sora looked like. "You guys are serious, come in quickly." Yi sighed helplessly. Ichigo and the others squeezed in together, and Luokan didn't even know how they squeezed in at such a young age. Hey! When Ichigo and the others entered the room, they immediately made a surprised sound, and Luo Chen hurriedly ran into the room to check the situation. What's wrong? What's wrong? What happened? Originally, Luokan had no curiosity at all, but now he is very nervous after being so made by them. I saw Orihime pointing at Shiba Sora and saying, "So she's a woman." Luokan was instantly speechless when he heard it. It was just a woman who was so surprised, he thought Zebo Kong was attacked by something. Zebo Kong was also very surprised when he saw Luokan. All the cigarette rods fell to the ground, and said excitedly, "Luokan, you are back." Luokan smiled awkwardly, facing Zebo Konghei's face with no impression at all, so he turned his attention to Yei. Cough, let's get down to business, I'll explain about Luokan later. Yi coughed twice, trying to get Zebo Konghei's attention. However, Zebo Kong didn't pay attention to Yaiki at all, and now Luokan is more attractive to her. Don't ignore me. Yi suddenly exuded a lot of resentment. Luo Chen was her man, how could she endure other women staring at Luo Chen like this? Ichigo and the others stepped back one after another. They were frightened by Yaiki, and Shiba Sora also reacted and scratched his head embarrassedly. I'm just too surprised, I didn't expect you to find Luokan, thank you for your hard work. Zebo Kong laughed. Yi sighed helplessly, this encounter is really indescribable, and it wasn't that she found Luo Chen, but Luo Chen found her. Let's get down to business, we want to enter the S-Linking to save people, and we need your help. Yi clearly stated the purpose of this. When Zebo Kong heard that the matter was so troublesome, she immediately refused. She didn't want to have anything to do with the people of Lingting, nor did she want to be involved in such troublesome things. Yi was stunned for a while, looking at Zebokong and didn't know what to say. When Ichigo saw Shiba Sokaku's refusal, he immediately became excited and said loudly, "Why don't you help us? I'm going to save Rukia." Zebokong glanced at Ichigo and said disdainfully, "Are you asking for help?" "What?" Ichigo was even more excited. He wouldn't beg for help in a low voice. Chapter 878. Luokan quickly pulled Ichigo back and smiled at Zebo-Kong. He said, "Don't take offense, this kid has such a bad temper." As soon as Zebo-Kong saw Luokan, his attitude changed instantly, his tough attitude softened, and he made a very charming gesture towards Luokan. Not only Luo Chen, but the rest of the people all shuddered, as if a cold wind was blowing. "Hey, Zebo-Kong, don't go too far." Yi rushed up and entangled with Zebo-Kong. Luokan originally wanted to persuade the fight, but the door to the inner room was closed, and there was a sound of fighting inside. "Ui, why did Mr. Yiki have such a big reaction?" Orihime asked incomprehensibly. Luokan smiled awkwardly, thinking in his heart, if Ichigo was seduced by others like this, you would definitely react more severely. The rest of the people didn't speak, they just stood outside. Ichigo couldn't hold his breath anymore, he went straight to the door and pulled it. As a result, a stool flew out from inside and hit Ichigo in the head exactly. "Don't disturb us," Zebo-Kong and Yei shouted loudly at the same time. Ichigo ran back in despair, with an aggrieved look on his face, and squatted pitifully to the side, stroking the bag on his head. Orihime naturally went forward to help Ichigo with treatment. After a while, the door opened, and both Yi and Zebo-Kong had obvious typhoid fever. "Are you two okay?" Luo Chen smiled bitterly, wondering how the two of them were talking. Yi raised his head proudly, and said proudly, "It's done, she has already agreed." "That's great," Luokan said happily, thanking Zebo-Kong. Zebo-Kong waved his hand, threw an eyebrow at Luokan, and said charmingly, "If you want to thank me, that's fine." "What did you say?" Yi made a fight again. If Luo Chen hadn't stopped her, she would have rushed out. Zebo-Kong also returned to his seriousness. He stopped teasing Luokan and became serious. "What's wrong with this weird atmosphere?" Luo Chen suddenly felt that the atmosphere became tense, and turned around to see that everyone was extremely serious. At this time, Zebo-Kong spoke slowly. "Although I promised you such a troublesome thing, I can't trust you completely, so I will send my little brother to go with you." Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Luokan agreed without hesitation. Isn't it just to stay with one more person? What a big thing, and how to make the atmosphere so tense. Yi originally wanted to refuse, but seeing that Luo Chen had already agreed, he didn't say anything, so he had to acquiesce. "Well, very good, my brother will take care of you." As Shiba Sora's voice landed, the door on the side opened, and what appeared in front of everyone turned out to be Gansu. "It turned out to be you." Ichigo immediately became excited when he saw Gansu, and all his previous depression disappeared. "What, so you know each other, so it's easy to say." Shiba-Kong seemed very happy, but he was worried that the boy Gansu would be dragged down, but now it seems that he doesn't have to worry at all. Luokan smiled bitterly, feeling that Gansu and Ichigo had a relationship of abuse, and the days after that would definitely become very lively. However, when Ganju saw Ichigo and the two of them, he got excited, and without a word, rushed up to fight. "You two." Shiba Sora was speechless when he saw the two of them fighting, and thought they were in a very good mood. 100 million. Chapter 879. Alas, the two of them were really indescribable. Luo Chen shook his head helplessly. He had an ominous premonition, so he quickly ran out of the house. Orihime and the others were very curious when they saw Luokan going out, so they also followed him away. Just after the few people walked out of the house, they heard a loud explosion. When they turned to look at the house had disappeared and was completely exposed to the ground. What's wrong with this? Ishida Yulong was shocked, surprised by this amazing destructive power. Yi explained helplessly, "Didn't I say that Zebokong would often move, that's why." Well, Ishida Yulong still didn't quite understand, what does this have to do with moving? At this time, Shiba Sora's voice came, seriously criticizing Ichigo and Ganju, and the two of them also sat on the ground obediently and admitted their mistakes. In front of Zebokong, the two of them agreed that she was not easy to mess with, so they obediently compromised. It's rare to see Ichigo so obedient. Luo Chen sighed. Ichigo immediately cast his eyes on Luokan and asked him for help. What can Luokan do? Who let him make trouble in other people's homes? How can he blame others for being angry? He should be punished. Jin, change us a room. Zebokong called coldly. Jin immediately answered loudly, "Yes, miss." After preparing like this for a while, Luokan and the others continued to discuss things in the intact room. I apologize for Ichigo's actions just now. I hope Miss Shiba Sora will not get angry again. Luokan said politely. As soon as Zebokong heard Luokan's voice, he immediately calmed down, his face revealed pink, and said shyly, "It's okay, it's nothing, as long as you're fine." Cough cough. Yi stared at the two of them resentfully from the side. As long as they acted abnormally, she would step forward to take action. Luo Chen immediately understood, took a step back, and let Yi continue the discussion. I almost know about your affairs. If you want to enter the S-Linting, you need this thing. Zebokong took out a ball from behind, and the ball floated with force with both hands. Wow, that's great. Orihime thought it was magic, and immediately clapped her hands. Ishida Yulong hurriedly stopped Orihime's actions. He already felt that Shiba Sora was a little unhappy. This is a prop that I developed that can break into the S-Spirit Palace. Your next task is to maintain the balance of this. Gansu, please show it. Shiba Kong said and threw the ball to Gansu. Ganju took it and immediately put his hands on it. A layer of faint light came out, and the whole ball became full of spiritual energy. When the time comes, you will enter this place, and then break into the S-Linting by your own strength. Zebokong said seriously. Luokan nodded. He felt that there was no difficulty in this thing. He took it over and started it successfully. As expected of Lord Luokan, it's really great. Zebokong looked at Luokan with radiance in his eyes. XXX. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 880. Luo Chen was embarrassed by Zebokong's praise, and replied, "This is nothing, everyone should be able to do it easily." Zebokong raised his eyebrows and was very concerned about Luokan's words. Gansu said excitedly, "It took me a week to practice this. Big sister's invention is not so easy to practice." Shut up, don't be rude to Luokan. Zebokong gave Ganju a fist. Luokan smiled embarrassedly, and gave the ball to Yulong Ishida to prove that it was very easy. Ishida Yulong took the ball inexplicably and released spiritual power with both hands. As a result, the sphere only emitted a faint light, so weak that it could be ignored. Ah, Ishida Yulong, come on. You can definitely do it. Luokan said suspiciously. He didn't feel how difficult this thing was. Ishida Yulong increased his strength, but to no avail, he had to pass the ball to the next person. Let me come. Orihime took over in a panic, and her heart began to drum up. Everyone stared at Orihime closely, which made Orihime even more nervous, and began to inject spiritual power in front of everyone's eyes. ZZ tilde, the sphere made a sound. Hurry up and take back the energy. Zebokong said loudly. Orihime tilted her head, and the sphere exploded before the energy could be recovered. The rest of the people were also affected, and their faces were black. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Orihime quickly apologized to everyone, feeling embarrassed for her fault. Luokan suddenly laughed. He now admits that the ball is not easy to control, so he is a genius. No, it was me who mediated the output of the host's ability, so it went so smoothly. The system's voice sounded from Luo Chen's mind. Luokan was speechless for a moment, and complained in his heart, "Will I die if I don't expose it? There are new ones here, you two give it a try." Shiba Sora took out 2 more balls from behind and threw them to Ichigo and Chato. After Chato injected energy, the sphere also made a sound. Chato quickly stopped the injection and looked at the other people in panic. On the other hand, Ichigo didn't inject spiritual power into the energy ball correctly, and the energy ball didn't respond at all. "Hey, kid, what are you doing?" Shiba Kong looked at Ichigo suspiciously, thinking he was teasing him. Ichigo shouted impatiently, "I see, ah." Yihu squeezed the ball with both hands and accidentally crushed it. "You injected strength into me, why do you use your hands?" Zibo Kong couldn't understand, whether she didn't say it clearly enough or the kid made trouble on purpose. Ichigo asked embarrassedly, how to inject power. Everyone was speechless. It turned out that Ichigo didn't know how to transfer it into the ball immediately, and thought that it would be enough if he used his hands hard. "Forget it, your next task is to be able to master this power smoothly, and I will also prepare for the next action. Ganju, take them down." Gansu took Ichigo and the others away, leaving only Luokan, Yoichi and Shiba Sora in the room. "Yi, what the hell is going on? Why doesn't Luo Chen know me anymore?" At first Zibo Kong thought Luo Chen was pretending to be on purpose, but after her observation Luo Chen showed no signs of disguise at all. Yi sighed and said earnestly, "This is also the purpose of my visit this time. Luokan seems to have lost his memory. Is there any way you can evoke his memory?" Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 881. Amnesia. Zibo Kong was surprised. For the god of death, this kind of memory loss is really rare, and it can even be said that there is no such thing. Luokan felt a little embarrassed listening to the conversation between the two of them. He wanted to make things worse. The truth of the love is told, but he can't stop how to speak. "I'll try my best." Zibo Konghe's expression became solemn, and she was not sure that Luokan could completely restore her memory. Luokan suddenly had a bad premonition, and hurriedly asked Yi, "What exactly does Zibo Kong do? Is she a doctor?" Yi shook his head and said lightly, "She is the most famous pyrotechnician in the Soul Society." "What, pyrotechnician?" The sweat on Luokan's head kept on staying, and the scene of himself being tied to the fireworks, and then Zibo Kong holding a match to light it came to mind. No, I don't need to restore any memories, I'm really fine now." Luokan said hurriedly, he didn't want those kind of terrifying memories. Zibo Kong and Yi looked at Luokan suspiciously, wondering what happened to him suddenly. I'll go see Ichigo and their practice first, I'll go first tilde. Luokan stood up, came to open the door, and rushed out. The whole set of actions flowed smoothly, and both Yaiki and Shiba Kong were stunned. "What's wrong with him?" "I do not know." The two of them stared at each other, and continued to discuss the next thing. After Luokan left the room, he felt a sense of salvation, so he breathed a sigh of relief and found Jin and asked Yihu where they were training. Under the guidance of Jin, Luokan found a training room for Ichigo and others. "Luokan, you are here, come and teach us how to control energy." Orihime said softly. She tried several times but couldn't find any feeling. Luokan is also very willing to teach, but unfortunately he doesn't know how to teach. Just now the system helped him control it. "What about the system?" "The host can just repeat what I said." The timely appearance of the system helped Luokan to solve the embarrassment. In this way, the system said one sentence, and Luo Chen repeated one sentence. Orihime and the others also grasped it very quickly. Except for Ichigo, a few people could more or less grasp the trick. "Damn it!" Ichigo shouted angrily, not knowing how many balls he broke. At this time, Shiba Kong walked in. He was very satisfied when he saw a few people practicing, but when he saw Ichigo, his brows furrowed tightly. Diaresis, you should give up. Shiba Kong said helplessly, from just now until now, Ichigo has really made no progress at all. How could Ichigo give up after finally coming to the Soul World? But he also knew his own situation, so he ignored Shiba Kong's words and practiced silently. Okay, let's go eat. Let that kid do the training here. Shiba Kong waved his hand and asked everyone to eat together. Wang Zhao Orihime wanted to stay and wait for Ichigo to eat together. Ichigo let Orihime go first, and he would soon be hungry. Ellipsis. Chapter 882. Luo Chen and the others quickly finished their meal, but Orihime didn't move at all. She was obviously very hungry, but she tried to say she was not hungry. Ah, you don't have to do this, right? Ishida Yulong said embarrassedly. Orihime punched her stomach twice because of the sound of her stomach. Luokan said lightly, Orihime is worried about Ichigo. After all, that guy's brain is not as easy to use as you guys. Orihime laughed awkwardly and didn't say anything. Luokan was full and took the lead to stand up and walk to Ichigo's practice room, pushed open the door and saw Ganju chatting with Ichigo. Ah, I'll only show it once. Don't steal it, you kid. Ganju said that he controlled the sphere to emit a thin film, and slowly surrounded his body. Shiba Kong was also full. She saw Luokan peeking outside the door and came up curiously. Yo, why don't you go in to observe and guide them? Shiba Kong opened the door and went in, but she was greeted by a huge explosion. With a sound of boom, the whole room disappeared, and the sun directly shone on Ichigo and their faces. Shiba Sora's expression gradually became angry. He raised his fist and waved at Ichigo and Ganju, and said solemnly, you two. Bang bang, 2 punches, and a bag grew on the heads of Ichigo and Ganju. You two don't have any food to eat today. Shiba Kong turned his head away after speaking, and even quickened his pace when he went out, not wanting Luokan to see him like this. Gansu was dumbfounded when he heard Shia Sora say this, and cast a resentful look at Ichigo. If it wasn't for him, Gansu would be eating delicious food now. Ichigo snorted coldly. It was obviously Ganju who asked him to use all his power. Who knew that this ball could only bear so much? Since he couldn't eat any more, Ichigo simply continued to practice, picked up the ball and exerted his strength again. But Gansu was frightened by Ichigo. Just now, his meal was blown away. He didn't know what would happen again, so he ran away quickly. Che, coward, Ichigo said disdainfully. Luokan walked in from the outside, and seeing Ichigo working hard really felt pitiful and funny. I'll teach you how to control power bar. Luokan said as he put his hand on Ichigo's shoulder and asked him to close his eyes and feel the power inside him. Ichigo slowly closed his eyes. Thanks to Luokan's help, Ichigo could finally feel the energy in his body and shouted excitedly. Well, let's try again. Luo Chen's hand was still on Ichigo's shoulder, so he could help when he couldn't control his energy. Ichigo is also constantly trying, and the energy is increasing little by little. Unfortunately, when the critical value is reached, Ichigo always suddenly increases his power. Strange, why did your power suddenly increase at that moment? Luo Chen asked the question in his heart. Ichigo shook his head. He was also very puzzled by this question. The system kindly reminded, it's an energy rejection reaction caused by the difference between the host's ability and Ichigo's ability. Luokan was speechless. He quickly put his hand down and let Ichigo try again. This time, Ichigo finally succeeded, and a faint blue film surrounded Ichigo. I succeeded. Because Ichigo was too excited, the energy transmission suddenly became larger, and the sphere exploded again. Fortunately, Luokan was not affected by preparations. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 883. Ichigo, are you all right? Luo Chen looked at Ichigo's dismal face and scars, and asked with concern. Ichigo shook his head. He just found some feelings, and now no one can stop him from practicing. After a night of practice, Ichigo successfully activated the energy of the sphere, so that their preparations were all completed. Ichigo and the others found Yoichi and asked when they could leave. We'll have to wait. After all, this matter will consume a lot of energy, and Zebo Kong is still replenishing energy. Yi and Dan replied. Ichigo couldn't wait any longer, and after asking Shiba Sora's room, he ran over immediately. Yi stretched out his hand to stop him, but Ichigo was nowhere to be seen. This kid is really too impulsive, his personality needs to be changed. Yi shook his head and said. Luo Chen smiled lightly. What's wrong with that? Isn't it good that Ichigo can maintain such a high mood no matter what he does? Yi replied, it's not about this, but that fellow Shiba Kong didn't want others to see him when he was replenishing his energy. Ichigo's rash running over there would definitely make her angry. Luokan can now imagine Shiba Sora being angry, but Ichigo's fate must be tragic. While Luokan was still imagining, there was a loud noise outside the house, and Ichigo's screams were also heard. Ichigo won't do anything, right? Orihime asked worriedly. Yi said nonchalantly, it doesn't matter, that kid has a big life, nothing will happen, and he hasn't rescued Rukia, so he won't die. Boom. Ichigo descended from the sky, unable to move his entire body. Hey, what's wrong with you, Ichigo? Luokan asked worriedly. Seeing Ichigo like this, he must have been severely tortured. Ichigo slowly stretched out a hand, opened his mouth to speak, but didn't say anything in the end, and finally closed his eyes. XXX. Ichigo. Orihime immediately ran forward and activated the power of Dunshin Liuhua to help Ichigo to heal. After a while, Ichigo woke up, blinked his eyes, and asked, where am I? Luokan finally felt relieved when he saw Ichigo woke up, and quickly asked Zebo Kong what he did to him and what he saw. Ichigo tilted his head to think about it for a while, his body shivered uncontrollably, and he quickly shook his head and refused to continue to think about it. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. It looks really scary, Luokan said helplessly. Just as he was talking, the door was pushed open, and Shiba Kong walked in with a smile. What's scary? I remember that someone accidentally pushed open my door just now. I don't know what happened. Everyone's eyes turned to Ichigo, and Ichigo quickly took a few steps back, always keeping a distance from Shiba Sora, but now he has a shadow on Zia Sora. Ha ha ha, it seems that my charm has made this kid unstoppable. It's so funny. Zebo Kong suddenly laughed. Ichigo immediately denied it, only to receive an attack from Shiba Sokaku's eyes. Ichigo immediately covered his mouth, not daring to make a sound anymore. 100 million. Chapter 884. Everything was ready, and Shiba Kong also began to show the device that sent Ichigo and the others into the spiritual court. When Luo Chen saw a giant chimney slowly rising, he suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Wait, won't you let us out as dazzling? Luo Chen raised the question in his heart. Zebo Kong nodded proudly and said, this is the only way to enter the spiritual court, and it is also the fastest way. The faces of the few people who fell into the dust became very ugly, and the atmosphere suddenly became very depressed. Don't worry, as long as you control your power well, there will be no problem. Yi comforted everyone. Ichigo swallowed, raised his hand and said loudly, let's go. Roar, let's go up. Luo Chen and others responded to Ichigo. Now that they have come here, there is no turning back, they can only go up. Shiba Sora asked Ichigo and the others to walk into the chimney, and made a noise when they were ready. Ganju took out a ball, put one hand in the face and began to inject power, and the others also began to inject power. Okay, Luo Chen said loudly. Shiba Kong started preparing to launch fireworks outside. The red cinnabar made a strange pattern on the ground, and then chanted the spiritual words aloud. With a sound of boom, Luo Chen and the others were launched, and they rushed towards the sky quickly. Hey, where are we going to rush like this? Ishida Yulong was a little worried, and the direction of the cannonball didn't look like it was going in the direction of Lingting. Ganjian explained, I'm going to prepare the second part of the spiritual words now, so don't disturb me. Ichigo hadn't figured out what was going on, so he kept asking questions, which seriously affected Ganju, so much that he read the same paragraph twice. Ah tilde, you are really annoying. Ganju shouted, and now the spiritual word is wrong, so the sphere has become a little unstable. Orihime quickly asked what to do. There is no other way. We can only keep everyone's spiritual power consistent. I hope there will be no accidents when we descend. Ganju said helplessly, leaving the rest to fate. Luokan was very helpless, so he hurriedly had a hard life. Why would he take such a risk? That Ichigo, you have a little more spiritual power. Orihime reminded kindly. Ichigo snorted and began to adjust his spiritual power. After Ichigo's adjustment, the spiritual power became smaller, and the sphere began to undergo violent changes. Ichigo-san, your spiritual power is getting smaller again. Orihime laughed awkwardly. Ichigo's brows furrowed tightly. He has tried his best to adjust it, but it still doesn't work, and the sphere is shaking more and more violently. Hey, are you okay? Don't hold us back. Ganju shouted excitedly, seeing that he was about to collide with the spirits around Lingting, but the situation here in Ichigo was still very bad. The more Ichigo was urged, the more restless his heart became, and the more unstable his energy became. Bang! The sphere protecting Ichigo and the others finally hit the protective barrier of the spiritual child around Lingting, causing a violent impact. The people in Lingting also discovered the existence of Ichigo and others, and came out to watch. There are people who are able to break through the spiritual protection barrier of Lingting. Who are they? No, they're going to break in. Quote katakana middle dot 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 quote. Chapter 885. The gods of death began to discuss, and anxiety began to spread in the spiritual court. On the other hand, Ichigo encountered difficulties. Their current position was stuck in the barrier, they were not moving forward and backward, and the momentum of the sphere was over. What should we do? How should we rush in now? Yi Xiang Gansu asked. Gansu had never encountered such a problem before, so he looked at Yuichi helplessly, and couldn't say a solution. Host, as long as you take back your spiritual power, the sphere will take back its power, so you can enter the spiritual court. A voice came from the system. Luokan quickly explained the method of the system, so everyone withdrew their spiritual power, and as a result, the sphere suddenly exploded under this ability gap. With a sound of boom, Luokan and his group 22 were all blown apart and flew out to different places. Luokan couldn't help complaining to the system, "You haven't thought about how to get there, have you?" The system smiled and changed the subject. Tell the host good news. I just found out that there is spiritual energy in the S-linting, and your magic bottle has been absorbed. Luokan was really happy to hear this, but unfortunately he fell to the ground a few seconds before he was happy. With a bang, Luokan landed in an uninhabited place. Fortunately, his body was strong, otherwise he would have been thrown to death. Hey, why didn't you remind me to land? Luo Chen was only happy, and completely forgot that he was still falling, so he didn't use his abilities to land safely. The system smiled and said nothing. He didn't expect that he had just escaped and encountered another disaster. Luokan stood up and looked around, looked up and saw a beam of light shining in, and realized that he had fallen into a room, which looked like a small dark room. Luokan, are you alright? Yi Yi's voice suddenly came from the side. Because it was too dark inside, Luokan really didn't notice Yi Yi. Yi Yi suddenly made a sound. Luo Chen was startled and pushed back again and again. Yi Yi was very dissatisfied when he saw Luo Chen's performance, and complained, I was very concerned about you, so I will pay attention to you, so as to avoid any mistakes in your linting. Luokan laughed hey, and quickly expressed his thanks to Yi Yi. However, the place of linting makes Luokan feel familiar. The specific number is that this body has feelings for this place. We actually came here, Yi Yi said in surprise after seeing the surrounding environment. Luokan asked suspiciously, can you see the situation around you? Luokan forgets that Yi Yi is now a black cat, and a cat's eyesight is better at night. Yi Yi suddenly sighed and ran to the side to light the oil lamp. Don't you remember this place? This is your home, Yi Yi said excitedly. Luokan was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that he would actually fall into the house of Luokan, the god of death. This is really a bad fate. I'm sorry, I don't remember at all. Luo Chen said helplessly, although his body reacted somewhat, but Luo Chen had no impression of this place at all. Suddenly, a picture appeared in Luokan's mind. In the picture, a girl and Luokan were practicing calligraphy. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 886. Luokan was stunned when he saw the picture in front of him. Yi Yi thought he was injured when he saw Luokan's appearance, so he quickly cared and asked. The picture in front of Luokan's eyes gradually disappeared with Yi Yi's voice. It's alright, I just saw a girl practicing calligraphy with me, and she looked very close. Luo Chen said lightly to the end, still thinking about who it was. Yi Yi immediately became excited when he heard Luo Chen's words, and immediately leaned in front of Luo Chen and asked excitedly, what does that girl look like? Luokan tilted her head while recalling, and said, the girl had a ponytail, purple hair, brown skin, and tight-fitting clothes. She looked very good. Yi Yi's face flushed, and he suddenly hit Luo Chen. Luokan looked at Yi Yi suspiciously, wondering what happened to her. I hate it, is that what I look like in your eyes? Yi Yi said shyly. Luo Chen opened his mouth wide, looked at Yi Yi in surprise, and asked in disbelief, is that person you tilde? Yi Yi didn't say anything, he just became human. Ah, Luo Chen couldn't help crying, and turned his head quickly, because Yi Yi was not wearing any clothes. Yi Yi is not shy, after all, they are both boyfriend and girlfriend, so it's not surprising that such a thing is. Ha ha ha, your reaction is exactly the same as when you peeked at me taking a bath for the first time. Yi Yi suddenly laughed. Luo Chen quickly waved his hand, urging Yi Yi to become a cat. Yi Yi tilted his head and said seductively, I thought you would like me very much like this. It seems that even if you lose your memory, your personality will not change. Luokan blushed and urged. Yi Yi was no longer Luokan, turned into a black cat and ran to Luokan again. Okay, now let's talk about how much memory you have recovered. Yi Yi stared at Luo Chen with big copper bell-like eyes. Luokan suddenly felt guilty when he was seen, and since he arrived here, he had a very familiar feeling. No, I don't remember anything. Luo Chen said lightly. In fact, he also really wanted to know the past of the death god Luo Chen and Yi Yi. The system made a sound at this time, and when it arrived at S-linting, the system obtained unexpected information. This document just happened to contain the memory of the god of death, and things related to S-linting. So I can know what happened between Luokan, the god of death, and Yi. Luokan asked in surprise. The system replied with a playful voice, Diaresis yes, do you want to check now? Naturally, I have to check it, so that I can understand what kind of person Death Luokan is, and I won't have to be teased by Yi in the future. The memory system is activated, and now the memory of the god of death will be played. Luokan's eyes instantly turned dark, and when he opened his eyes again, he saw himself wandering in the place where Yi was taking a bath. What is he doing? Of course, what Luokan asked was the behavior of the god of death Luokan. He thought that the god of death Luokan, who is Zhao's, was a righteous gentleman, but he didn't expect to peek at the girl taking a bath. The system replied indifferently, he is protecting Yi and preventing wild creatures from harming Yi. This is the first time the death god Luochen and Yi met. The two of them don't know each other's identities. Luokan stuck out his tongue and smiled embarrassedly. It seemed that he had misunderstood the god of death Luokan. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 887. As soon as the screen changed, Luokan returned to the room. At this time, Yi Yijung was practicing calligraphy with Luokan, the god of death. Why are your words always so crooked? Death Luokan frowned and looked at Yi. Yi directly gave the god of death Luochen a fist, put down the pen angrily, turned his head and sulked. Luochen, the god of death, didn't step forward to coax him, but silently put Yi's words in a drawer for storage. Isn't it all written by Yi? Luochen looked at the drawer full of papers in surprise. The screen changed again, this time Luokan came to the streets of Lingting. XXX. Are you really going to leave? Are you willing to leave me like this? Yi looked at Death Luokan with a sad expression, his hands tightly pulling Death God Luokan's sleeves. Death Luokan left without saying a word. The mission he was going to perform this time was very dangerous, so he could not take Yi with him, nor could he give Yi any guarantee. Hey, you were dumbfounded, did you act stupid when you fell? Yi waved his cat's paw in front of Luochen. Luokan came back to his senses, and his eyes were full of complicated emotions. At the beginning, the death god Luokan failed in his mission, so he didn't come back. Luochen suddenly took out a small jade pendant from his body and put it in Yi's hand. Yi was stunned when she saw Xiao Yupei, her eyes filled with tears, and she said excitedly, "Do you really remember?" Luokan shook his head. He didn't intend to tell what he knew about the death god Luokan and Yi, so he made an excuse. This thing feels very cumbersome to me, please keep it for me. Luochen said with an innocent smile. Yi looked at Luochen excitedly, and a trace of disappointment flashed in his heart, but he quickly adjusted his emotions. I see, thank you. Yi silently put away the little jade pendant. Luochen was really not used to seeing the sad Yiki, so he quickly changed the subject and asked Ichigo about their situation. Damn it, I forgot them all. Yi got excited, all because of Luochen. She forgot about Ichigo and the others coming to S-linting. Luokan smiled embarrassedly. This kind of thing can depend on his own head, that's enough. Then let's hurry up and find them. By the way, why is this place so dilapidated? It looks like no one has lived in it for a long time. Luochen felt very disgusted when he saw his room was so dirty. Yi laughed loudly. It's not because of me. I haven't allowed anyone to approach since you left, so no one has come in to clean it. Luokan squinted at Yi, but he didn't expect that Yi's feelings for Luokan, the god of death, would be so deep. I see. We are divided into two groups. If we find someone, we will bring him back here. Anyway, no one will come near here, so it's better to use it as a base. Yi nodded a little, and the two of them left the house of the god of death. By the way, you have to be careful not to be seen by others, otherwise terrible things will happen. Yi suddenly became serious. Luokan swallowed and asked about something terrifying. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 888. Yi smiled mysteriously, and then ran away, which made Luo Chen embarrassed, and kept thinking about what was going on. What will happen? Luokan had no choice but to ask the system for help. The system didn't know what it was, and the answer to this question could not be found in the memory. Forget it, who cares, if that's the case, just give me a different look so that I can move freely. Luo Chen said. The system immediately adjusted the appearance of falling dust. Luokan took out the mirror and looked at it. The people inside startled him, and couldn't help complaining to the system. Even if I don't want others to recognize me, I don't need to make me so ugly. Luo Chen looked at himself in the mirror, completely detached from his human appearance. He was a freak at all. The system is also very helpless in the face of a host like Luokan, so it has to let Luokan imagine a face, and then it helps to adjust. After a lot of hard work, Luo Chen walked out of the room with a brand new look. Luokan walked all the way according to his memory, and found that there was no one on the road, not even a living creature. No way, is my neighborhood so deserted? Luo Chen said helplessly, but now he wanted to find someone to chat with. When Luo Chen thought about it this way, he heard footsteps not far away, so he quickly chased after him. I heard that the Brigade of Disasters is coming, and all the spiritual palaces are on alert. Everyone should be careful. Yes. Luokan followed behind the crowd for a while. Due to the high spiritual power in S-Linting, Luokan was unable to find the spiritual power of Ichigo and the others, and could only rely on the naked eye to find it. Luokan ran with the crowd for a while and found himself back where he was, which was embarrassing. Forget it, it's up to you. Luo Chen said helplessly. At this moment, Luokan turned around and made a sound, and the guards immediately looked towards Luokan and found Luokan's figure. We found the Brigade of Disaster, everyone be careful. The guards shouted, feeling that the entire S-Linting could hear their voices. Seeing that the situation was not good, Luo Chen ran away quickly. He didn't expect that he would be discovered so quickly. He was really careless. The system quickly finds me a route. Luokan is now running around like a headless fly. At this time, a group of death gods suddenly rushed out from the opposite side, and Luo Chen was surrounded. The host can walk on the eaves, but they can't catch up. The system gave a timely opinion. Happy he laughed, and jumped on the wall with his legs, waved his hands at the crowd and jumped down. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Ha ha ha, it's really fun. Luokan couldn't help laughing when he recalled the expressions of those gods of death just now. Hey, what are you laughing at? Another group of death gods stood in front of Luo Chen, looking at Luo Chen with the eyes of an idiot. Luokan felt that a crow flew over his head, and without saying a word, he pulled his legs and started to run away. Stop and don't run. The gods of death started chasing Luokan again. 0. Luokan sighed helplessly, sighing that his life was miserable. How could he meet the god of death everywhere? Wait, he also has the power of death. Maybe he can take advantage of this. Luokan asked the system to find a corner, and then ran over with the gods of death. Where are you going this time? The gods of death glared at Luokan with weapons, trying to arrest him. A smug smile appeared on Luokan's face, but this time he deliberately came to the dead end, in order to solve these troublesome guys. 100 million. Chapter 889. Flame Nine-Tailed Whip. Luo Chen suddenly pulled out his Zanpakudo and swung it to hit the Shinigami. The god of death was too weak, and Luo Chen knocked down more than half of it with one blow, and the rest of the god of death looked at Luo Chen in horror, not daring to take a step forward. Luo Chen couldn't help laughing when he saw the expressions of the gods of death. He didn't expect that they were not as strong as the virtual power of the human world. Hey, do you really look like a god of death? The gods of death were so angry that they were ridiculed by Luokan, and they didn't care if they could beat them. Come on, hack this arrogant boy to death. Everyone, let him know how powerful our death gods are. Quote katakana middle dot 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 quote. Luo Chen looked at the oncoming god of death without any fear. He raised his hand and moved the Zanpakuto, and the gods of death fell to the ground one after another. It's really too weak. Luo Chen shook his head helplessly. If the opponents he encountered in the future were all this weak, he would not have to work hard. Luokan quickly took off the clothes of a god of death and put them on for himself. Well, I'm no different from the god of death now. Luo Chen looked at his new clothes with satisfaction. What else can the system say? Who made the god of death look similar to ordinary people, but the clothes are not the same. Luokan walked to the street again, and passed by a group of gods of death again. This time no one stopped him. Done. When Luokan was praising his IQ, Ichigo and Magma suddenly rushed past, and they were followed by two gods of death. Hey, stop them quickly, don't let the brigade escape. Death shouted loudly. Luokan naturally wanted to stop Ichigo and Ganju, but Ganju was like a kite that had lost its string, and ran right in front of Luokan's eyes, pulling Ichigo by the way. Hey, what are you running for? Luo Chen shouted in the direction of Ichigo and Ganju. Ganju even turned his head and made a face at Luokan, mocking, "Idiot, I won't be caught by you." Luo Chen was stunned for a moment, and the system reminded him of the change of face. I forgot all about it. No wonder they saw me running. Luo Chen smiled and quickly chased after him. At this time, a bald god of death and a strange-looking god of death caught up and said to Luo Chen, "Don't take this credit from us, we found them first." With a black line on Luokan's face, he had a lot of things to say in his heart, but now is not the time, it's still more important to pursue Ichigo and Ganju. Wait for me, don't run. It was impossible for Luo Chen to become what he was, because the two gods of death were following him all the time. Hey, you two don't follow me. Luo Chen roared loudly. If Ichigo saw his face, they would definitely not run away. The bald god of death shouted unceremoniously, "Idiot, that's our prey, and we won't give it to you." The expression on Luokan's face changed a bit. He raised his hand angrily and slapped his head bald. Do you want to fight? The bald head stopped and roared angrily at Luo Chen. Luokan wasn't afraid of this bald head, and said excitedly, "Fight, fight, whoever is afraid." The two took out their Zanpakuto and prepared to fight. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 890. At this time, the strange god of death on the side was happy and said loudly, "You fight slowly, the credit for this is all mine." When Luo Chen and the bald-headed death god heard this, they immediately gave up the enemy in front of them and quickly pursued them. However, the speed of Ganju's escape was too fast, and after a short delay, no one could be seen. How are you two going to accompany me? I let them go. Luo Chen was angry. He asked. If it weren't for the two gods of death, he would have successfully gathered with Ichigo. The two gods of death were still angry, and immediately retorted excitedly. Through intense communication, Luo Chen knew that the bald-headed god of death was called Yi Zhao, while the strange-looking god of death was called Gong Qin. Your names are so strange. Luo Chen couldn't help complaining. What a corner, Gong Qin, it's so funny. The corner of Gong Jin has not been laughed at by his name, so he excitedly picked up the Zanpakuto and attacked. Luo Chen naturally counterattacked, waving the whip of the nine tails to block the attack of the lower bow affinity corner. You actually used Shiji, then we're welcome. Yi Zhao said that he was about to release the power of Zanpakuto. Gong Qin hurriedly stopped the corner. Now the brigade invasion is not the time for infighting. Which fan are you from? We'll find a chance to decide the outcome next time. Gong Qin stared at Luo Chen, and he also had a lot of dissatisfaction with Luo Chen. Luokan replied without hesitation, Team 10. Wait, Are you from the 10th division? Gongqin looked at Luo Chen suspiciously, his eyes filled with disbelief. Luokan became embarrassed and thought he was exposed. Just when he was about to run away, Gongqin suddenly laughed. What? It turned out to be from the 10th division. I know, we will meet soon. After saying that, Gongjin grabbed a corner and left. When Luokan saw them, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that he was not suitable for lying. He was so nervous that he was sweating. At this time, Ichigo and Ganju suddenly ran past Luo Chen again. You guys stop, I'm Luokan. Luokan said loudly, and quickly let the system restore his appearance. This time, Ichigo and Gansu finally felt relieved, but Gansu also complained a lot. XXX. Why are you pretending to be a god of death? It's really scary. Luokan shrugged helplessly. If it was him like this, he would have caused a huge movement before he could find them. By the way, why did you guys come back again? Luo Chen wanted to run out to find the two of them just now. Ichigo said disdainfully, who knew the road here would be so complicated? This Luna has already led me around here for several times and I'm hungry. When Luokan heard this, he couldn't help laughing. He looked at Ganji, but he didn't expect him to be Lu Kai. Ganju shouted excitedly, who are you calling a Luna? It's obviously the road you pointed me to, so I'll just run as you said, okay. Ichigo wasn't convinced either, and the two started arguing. Because the two people's voices were too loud, they attracted the god of death. Team 10, we forgot to ask your name. Gongqin's voice came over. When Ganju saw Gongqin, his first reaction was to run away. He pulled Ichigo and ran away without a word, leaving Luo Chen dumbfounded. You're so lucky to meet them again. I decided to follow you. Gongqin walked up and put his hand on Luokan's shoulder. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 891. Just as Luo Chen was about to speak, a hand was placed on the other shoulder. I also decided to follow you. Whoever can catch the calamity will depend on their abilities. Yi Zhao said lightly. The system has already changed Luo Chen's appearance into the appearance of Yi Zhao and Gongqin in advance, so the two talents did not have any doubts. Luokan looked at the two with a wry smile, and really didn't know what to do now. You two, don't entangle me. Luo Chen couldn't help complaining. Luokan has been gone for a long time, and Gongqin Yi Zhao has been following him all the time, so he is afraid that Luokan will take the credit away by himself. Gongqin replied indifferently, that's not possible. Since we met, this may be fate. Only merits like catching the Brigade of Misfortune can match my beautiful appearance. Luokan looked at Gongqin with a puzzled face, completely unaware of what this guy was talking about. You don't need to pay attention to him, this guy has always been like this, he will say some strange things tilde. Yi Zhao said helplessly. The corner of Luokan's mouth twitched in embarrassment, and shouted loudly to the corner, in this case, you should take this guy away quickly, don't bother me. Luokan was entangled by them and didn't dare to go to Ichigo, so he couldn't help but complain about Ganju in his heart. Luokan is in front of them. I really don't know what they are afraid of. If these two gods of death fight together, they are not his opponents, really. Yi Zhao replied without hesitation, impossible. Although Gongqin is a bit strange, his intuition is still very accurate. Since he believes that he will be able to find the Brigade of Disasters with you, he will definitely be able to find it. Luokan was completely defeated by these two strange fellows. He didn't know what to say, so he wandered aimlessly on the streets of Lingting. After a while, Yi Zhao said loudly, why are we back where we were? Luo Chen was really surprised to find that he had returned to the starting point after saying this. Don't worry, trust my intuition. Gong Zi said confidently. Luokan didn't even know where Gongqin got his confidence. He was deliberately avoiding Ichigo and Ganju now. If he could see the two of them, he would be a ghost. At this moment, Gansu and Ichigo suddenly appeared. Look, I'll say that I can meet them. Gangjin said, and drew out his zanpakuto, with a smug smile on his face. Luokan watched Ichigo and Ganju open their mouths, and had to believe that there were ghosts in this world, and this kind of thing could happen. Diaresis, why did you two come back? Luo Chen couldn't help but ask questions. Ganju was also very puzzled. He had been running forward, but he had returned to the original place. Gongqin gave the answer from the side. This is a circular street. There is only one exit to get out, but you can't find out Zhao's. Gansu and Ichigo were dumbfounded for a moment, and their emotions were running around for a long time. And Luokan was also embarrassed. Since it was like this, he couldn't wait in place. Why did he take so much effort to find them? Of course it's to show off my beauty. Gongqin touched his face and explained Luo Chen's question enchantingly. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 892. Now that he knew that it was a circle, Ichigo didn't plan to run anymore. He raised his zanpakuto and rushed over. A corner naturally rushed over, and Gongqin wanted to rush out but was stopped by Luo Chen. Hurry up and let me go, I'm going to solve the disaster. Gongqin said loudly. Luokan didn't have a way to get out, so naturally he couldn't let go of him, and it would be even more dangerous to let go of him, Ichigo and Ganju, so he clung to Gongjin's hand tightly with both hands. Gongqin tried everything, but couldn't get rid of Luo Chen, and finally told Luo Chen how to get out. It's that simple. Luokan couldn't believe it, as long as he jumped out of the wall. Gongqin nodded impatiently, and threw off Luo Chen's hand and rushed towards Ganju. Ganju has never been good at fighting, and he can still show some masculinity in the face of Ichigo, but he ran away in the face of Gongjin. Where to run? Gongqin chased after him. Luokan originally wanted to catch up, but seeing the fiery fight between Ichigo and Yizhao, he had to worry about the situation here first. He believed that Ganju's two running skills were unparalleled. Seeing Luokan looking at them in the corner, he immediately turned around and said to Luokan, "Don't come to disturb our battle, or I won't even let you go." Ichigo was also on fire, and said to Luokan, "Yes, leave this guy to me, you can find someone else." Luokan was very helpless, shrugged his shoulders and sat down. Although he also wanted to find someone else, he had to take Ichigo and Ganju back first, otherwise he didn't know where the two of them would go. Ichigo and Ichigo scuffled together, and the two of them unleashed the power of Zanpakuto. Ghost Maru. The Zanpakuto in one corner instantly turned into a long spear, and the hilt could be separated into a 3-section stick. Wow, this Zanpakuto is so good. Luo Chen had never seen such a Zanpakuto before, so he couldn't help but exclaimed in admiration. Yizhao smiled proudly and said to Ichigo, "You might have defeated me before, but you have no chance at all against Onitsumaru." Saying that, Yizhao rushed forward, while Ichigo had a look of disdain. He didn't care about Gaidanmaru or Guewomaru, as long as it was an enemy, he would defeat them all. Luokan looked at Gidomaru in the corner and couldn't help but ask, as the Zanpakuto deformed according to the master's appearance. It's like the sword in the corner has turned into a spear, which is really suitable for a monk. I'm not a monk. Luokan's complaints were heard loudly modeled in a corner. Luo Chen didn't expect that he accidentally said what was in his heart. He smiled at the corner, and explained, "I'm sorry, your bald head really makes me remember." Then I'm not a monk either. Yi said excitedly. Because of his anger, Yizhao attacked harder, and Ichigo had been forced into a corner by Yizhao after repeated defeats. Ichigo, do you have this strength? Luo Chen asked lightly. If that's the case, then Rukia has no hope. Ichigo shouted excitedly. Shut up, the competition has only officially started now. Saying that, Ichigo increased the attack power, and jumped his legs into the air, using gravity to increase the power of the attack. Yizhao felt that something was wrong for a moment, and after resisting Ichigo's attack, he turned his head and asked how Luokan knew Ichigo's name. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 893. We originally came together, Luo Chen said lightly. The corner was shocked, with an angry expression on his face, and shouted excitedly, "You actually deceived my trust, it's really unforgivable." Luokan laughed embarrassedly. He never said that he was their companion, but he was a god of death in the first place, so it wasn't a deception. Look at the move. Yi Koke attacked Luo Chen after repelling Ichigo's attack. He couldn't forgive the person who deceived him. Luokan hurriedly summoned the 9 tails, ready to attack. However, Ichigo jumped to block Luokan in front of him. He had already decided that the corner was his target, so he didn't want others to intervene. Okay, time is precious, hurry up, we still need to find Orihime and the others. Luokan said lightly. Ichigo naturally knew that he kept raising his spiritual power, exudes a strong spiritual pressure. When Ichigo knocked down Onitsumaru with one blow, but he didn't attack the corner. What is this? Why don't you cut me with a knife? Yi Zhao asked excitedly. Since he had already lost, he should have been injured. She didn't need such sympathy. A handguard raised the knife and fell, and hit a corner of the chest. Puff. Blood spurted out from a corner of his chest, then fell to the ground, his eyes gradually closed, and finally he said, "Thank you." Luokan clapped with both hands, praising Ichigo's beautiful fight. Ichigo snorted coldly, looked at the direction in which Ganju fled, and said, "Let's worry about that idiot. Death will not be as merciful as me." Luo Chen glanced at Ichigo, then looked at the corner lying on the ground. For Yi Zhao's sincerity, Luokan gave Yi Zhao a pill to heal the wound, but the recovery was not so fast. Okay, let's go. Luo Chen stood up and said to Ichigo. Ichigo glanced at a corner and said, "You go first, I want to see someone come to save him, and he cannot be allowed to die here." Luo Chen directly lifted a corner of his body and threw it over the wall. Hey, what are you doing? He's already wounded, is it necessary to treat him like this? Ichigo said excitedly. Although the corner was an enemy, Ichigo couldn't bear to really kill her. Luokan couldn't help laughing, explaining that only in this way can people in the medical class discover a corner, otherwise no one would ever pass by. Really? Ichigo asked suspiciously. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Luo Chen also felt a little drum in his heart. If what Gongqin told him was not wrong, then it would be fine. If you don't believe me, just stay here and don't run away. Luo Chen said and left. Anyway, Ichigo won't be in danger here. When he saves Ganju, he will come back and take Ichigo away. Ichigo nodded and jumped to the wall to observe the situation in a corner. Luokan turned his head and glanced at Ichigo, and found that he was carefully looking at the corner with a consoling smile. As expected of Ichigo, even in the face of an enemy, he won't kill anyone, so gentle. Luokan was thinking about this and suddenly heard the screams from Ganju and Gongqin, so Luokan hurriedly ran forward to check the situation. However, Luokan Mystery didn't see it either. He only saw a huge pit, and the sound seemed to come from the pit. 100 million. Chapter 894. Help, Luokan, hurry up and save me. Ganju grabbed the edge of a little bit and cried out to Luokan for help, he couldn't hold on anymore. And Gongqin grabbed his leg and looked very embarrassed. Ah, how did you guys get like this? Luo Chen asked suspiciously, he didn't understand very much. Ganju said anxiously, hurry up and save us, there is an abyss below where we can't go back, I don't want to die yet. 273 When Luo Chen heard this, he hurriedly stretched out his hand. Unexpectedly, Ganju's physical strength had reached its limit. XXX. Plop tilde. The griffin and the bowman fell one after another. Luo Chen was dumbfounded, and shouted loudly, Ganju, Gongjin, are you alright? Ganju thought he was dead. He opened his eyes after hearing Luo Chen's voice and saw that there was rubbish around him, and he also fell on the rubbish heap. That's great, I'm not dead, I'm fine with Luoken. Ganju became happy, and couldn't help but spit out the bow and lied to himself that this was the abyss of death. Gongqin's face is not good looking. He is now disgraced by the hawk, and he has fallen into the garbage heap. This is how tarnished his beautiful place. I must kill you. Gongjin stared at Ganju. Even if he didn't have a zanpakudo in his hand, he would kill Ganju. When Ganju saw Gongjin running towards him fiercely, he screamed loudly, and the rope that just fell to the ground also landed. Ganju quickly grabbed the rope and let Luoken pull him up. Even Luo Chen couldn't see what was going on below, so he immediately pulled the rope up when he heard the sound of Ganju. No, why are you following again? Ganju screamed loudly. At this time, Ganju tightly grasped the rope, while Gongjin was holding onto Ganju's legs tightly, staring at Ganju. Gongqin said resentfully, I'll kill you when I get there, or I'll be sorry for my beauty. Ganju felt that his life was so hard, he didn't do anything, but he was going to be hated by Gongjin, so he swung his legs back and forth, trying to throw Gongjin off. Luoken felt the rope shaking violently, and quickly reminded them not to move anymore, otherwise they would really not be able to get up if the rope broke. As soon as Luo Chen's voice fell, the rope snapped, and the bow affinity and Ganju fell onto the garbage pile again. Gongjin is completely angry now, his whole face is a little deformed, in Ganju's eyes he is like a devil. Luo Chen looked at the broken rope and was dumbfounded, there was nothing else he could do. Luoken, help, I'm going to be killed. The cry for help of a hawk came out of the pit. Luoken has no choice. This is the only rope he has. It has been broken now. Even if it is tied, there is no explanation. Host, you can use the power of the 9 tails to drag them up with a whip. The system reminded kindly. Luo Chen couldn't help but praise the system for having a good idea, and quickly summoned the 9 tails, and let it use its tail to drag Ganju and Gongjin up. Ganchuri quickly grabs the tail of the 9 tails, this time you have to be careful. Luo Chen kindly reminded that if there is another accident this time, there is really no way to do it. Juwei's tail slowly drooped down, and Ganju saw the red tail and immediately grabbed it, pulling it hard twice. 9 tails screamed in pain, and with a forceful flick of her tail, the hawk was thrown into the air. Hey, why is it all alone, Gongqin? Luo Chen couldn't help asking as he looked at the hawk who fell from the sky to the ground. Ellipsis. Chapter 895. At this time, Gongjin relied on his own strength to climb up. Seeing Gongqin's tragic appearance, Luo Chen quickly handed over a handkerchief and said, it's better to wipe your face first. Originally, Gongqin's face was quite white, but after staying in the garbage heap for a while, it had turned black, so she couldn't recognize Gongqin at all. Gongjin finally took out a small mirror from behind with the handkerchief, and became even more angry when he saw his appearance. Flames erupted from his whole body, and he looked at Ganju angrily. Ganju felt the angry gaze, and 22 ignored the pain, stood up and ran. When Gongjin saw that Ganju escaped, he also chased after him. Luoken had just rescued the 2 of them, and in the blink of an eye, the 2 of them ran away, and Luoken had to continue chasing after him. It's really troublesome. 9 tails, can you help me catch them both? Luo Chen looked at 9 tails. 9 tails ran out immediately, and sparks appeared in the steps under her feet. After a while, Kyubi came back with 2 people, and both of them fainted. What's the situation? Luo Chen looked at Juwei suspiciously. 9-tailed innocently replied, the 2 of them always wanted to escape, so I knocked them unconscious and now I brought them back. Luoken smiled awkwardly. There was nothing wrong with what Juwei said, it was the 2 of them who were wrong. Okay, Juwei, you did a good job, go back and rest. Luo Chen asked Juwei to return to his body to rest. Luo Chen looked at the two people lying on the ground and sighed helplessly, but decided to first take Gong Jin away and then take Ganju away. Gong Jin. Luo Chen woke up Gong Jin after hiding the vultures. Gong Jin, who woke up, shouted excitedly, "I must kill you." Luokan smiled bitterly. It seems that Gong Jin really has a grudge against Ganju this time. I really don't know what happened between the two of them. Ah, that calamity brigade ran over there, hurry up and chase it. Luo Chen casually pointed in a direction. Gong Jin Shang Luokan ran away after receiving a thank you. He shouted angrily, "Don't let me catch you, or I'll cut you into pieces." As soon as Gong Jin ran away, the wallpaper on the side fell off, and Gansu's body was exposed. "Hey, it's time for you to wake up too." Luo Chen reluctantly stomped the pestle of Ganju. He knew that Ganju had already woken up, so he would always stand there obediently in order to avoid Gong Jin. Ganju he laughed, complimenting Luokan for being really good. "Okay, come with me, I'll take you and Ichigo to a safe place, and then act together," Luo Chen said, dragging Ganju to the fence, and then jumped out. Luokan took Ganju to find Yihu, and Yijiao was taken away by the medical class. "Okay, now it's time for us to find them and gather, you two, come with me," Luo Chen said as he walked away. Luokan stopped suddenly halfway through, he forgot the way he came. "What, are you a dead-end idiot?" Gansu couldn't help complaining. Luokan is also very helpless, who made every street here look the same. Ellipsis. Chapter 896. The system kindly showed Luo Chen the way, otherwise they would really be lost. "Be careful, there is a god of death ahead," the system's voice sounded in Luo Chen's mind. Luokan quickly took Ichigo and Ganju to dodge. Thanks to the system's reminders along the way, they wouldn't know how many times they would have been spotted, especially Ichigo. Ichigo was very excited all the way, and wanted to rush out to fight the Shinigami, and then ask them about Rukia's whereabouts. If Luokan hadn't said that he had grasped Rukia's movements, Ichigo wouldn't have come back with him. After some twists and turns, Luokan, Ichigo and Ganju finally returned to the house of the god of death Luokan. "Okay, the two of you sit down first, just treat it as your own home." Luo Chen looked around and found that Yi hadn't come back yet. Ganju looked at the room and said in surprise, "This should be the residence of a person of high status." When Luo Chen heard this, he said proudly, "Yes, this is my home, so it's all right." Although the house belonged to the god of death, but now he has fallen into the dust, so it naturally belongs to him. Gansu and Ichigo widened their eyes in surprise when they heard Luokan's words, and couldn't believe it. "Hey, why is there such a big gap between the two of you brothers, both in terms of personality and identity tilde?" Ganju couldn't help but complain. Ichigo looked at Luokan suspiciously, and asked loudly, "Who are you? My cousin is not a god of death." When Ganju heard Ichigo's words, he quickly took 2 steps back, for fear that Luokan would hurt him. Luokan smiled bitterly, he is indeed not Ichigo's cousin, and at this point, he can only admit it. "That's right, I'm not your cousin, I'm the god of death here. I've only stayed in your house because of some things. But don't worry, I won't be in any danger to you, and I'll help you," Luo Chen hurriedly proceeded explain. Ichigo was full of doubts about Luokan's words. From the time he moved into his home, he had a strange feeling until he came to the Soul Realm and woke up. "You have to believe me, otherwise I won't bring you here to rescue Rukia." Luokan looked at Ichigo sincerely. Gansu said softly in Ichigo's voice, "Let's choose to trust him now. After all, this is his home. It would be bad if he kicked us out. Ichigo is very strong, and he just leaves, he doesn't want to stay here, he wants to go to Rukia." When Ganju saw that Ichigo was about to leave, he naturally followed, but he was very reluctant to leave this place. After all, it was not a bit safer here than the outside world. Diaresis, think about it clearly. If you leave here, you may delay the whole plan, and thus you won't be able to rescue Rukia in time. Even so, it doesn't matter to you. Luokan knew what Ichigo cared about, so he used this to keep Ichigo forcibly. Hearing Luokan's words, Ichigo really stopped, turned his head to look at Luokan angrily, and asked, "How on earth can you save Rukia?" Luokan hasn't figured out how to do it yet, but if he wants to save the next person, it's really easy. There is no one in the Soul Society, except Zhao Hao, who can stop him. Let's talk about this when the night comes. After the battle just now, you are all hungry, so let's eat some food to replenish some physical strength. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 897. Luokan found that there was a lot of food in the house, guessing that it was put here on the night of the night, so he took it out and ate it without hesitation. Ganju immediately ate the food when he saw the food. He had already exhausted his stamina after a frantic run just now, and now he needs to replenish his stamina. It's really delicious, thank you Luokan. Ganju smiled and thanked Luokan. Luokan nodded, picked up the food and handed it to Ichigo. Ichigo was stubborn and refused to eat it at first, but Ganju directly opened the food and stuffed it into his mouth. Ichigo was very angry at first, but after chewing it for a while, he found that it was really delicious, so he sat down and ate it. Luokan smiled at the way the two were eating, but he was still very worried about the situation of the others. I don't know what's going on with Yi. You two are taking care of you here. I'll go out and look for other people. Luo Chen said that he was about to stand up and look for Orihime and the others. Ichigo immediately stood up and asked to follow Luokan. No, Luo Chen refused, because Ichigo's character was too hot, and this kind of secretly looking for someone was not suitable for him at all. Ichigo saw Luokan's refusal to ask why he was excited. Luokan hasn't spoken yet, but Ganju pointed out the shortcomings of Ichigo, such as poor temper, impulsiveness, likes to fight, being careless, luscious, etc. Ichigo's face became darker and darker when he heard this, and he charged at Ganju with his fist raised, and the two of them scuffled together. Luokan shook his head helplessly, looking at the two of them like this, they were really happy friends. Okay, here is everything you need. Remember that you must not go out until I come back. You are wanted everywhere, Luo Chen emphasized repeatedly. Ganju agreed immediately, while Ichigo stayed silent. Luokan is very at ease with Ganju, but Ichigo's situation is unpredictable, just ask Ganju to watch Ichigo. No problem, hold it on me, I will definitely look at this guy. Ganju said with a firm forehead, turning around and staring at Ichigo. Ichigo snorted coldly with disdain. He felt very disgusted by Luo Chen's request, especially for Ganju to look at him. That's because I'm honest. I won't cause trouble, I don't always like to make trouble and cause trouble to others like you. Ganju said disdainfully. Ichigo got excited again, the two of them argued excitedly, then moved their hands and made a loud noise. Luokan is now glad that no one is approaching, otherwise he will definitely be attracted to check the situation. Hey, I'll go first. Luo Chen turned his head and left, and had a bad feeling when he stepped out of the door again. Luokan looked back at the house and thought to himself, Ichigo and Ganju will not have anything to do with it, right? Now is not the time to worry. Luokan needs to find Orihime, Ishida Yulong and Chadu as soon as possible, and bring them back to protect them. Luokan had just walked a few steps and got lost again, looking at the same street, he felt bitter in his heart. Host, admit it, you're a Luna. The system couldn't help but complain, and it once again showed Luo Chen the way. XXX. In order to accept the help of the system, Luokan had to admit that he was a lunatic, at least he was a lunatic in S-linking. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 898. Fallen Dust was guided by the system to a place she didn't recognize at all. Ah, where is this place? Is there really Orihime and the others? Luokan asked suspiciously. The system is naturally not guaranteed, but the conclusion it draws after analysis is near here. Luokan walked aimlessly, and a group of death gods passed by. Each of them looked at Luokan with disdain. Did I do something wrong? These gods of death look at me like this. It's really strange. Luokan thought so in his heart, and suddenly saw two sneaky figures. They didn't look like good people. Stop, don't run. The sneaky person suddenly rushed in front of Luokan, which made Luokan realize that it was Orihime and Ishida Yuryu. Before Luo Chen's words were finished, Ishida Yuryu pulled Orihime and ran in the opposite direction. Immediately after, a bunch of death gods appeared. They looked left and right and asked Luo Chen if they saw two disaster brigade. They went that way. Luokan casually pointed in one direction. The death gods chased in the direction of Luokan's finger, and Luokan ran in the right direction. Wait for me, Luo Chen shouted loudly behind Orihime and Ishida Yuryu, but the two of them didn't mean to stop at all. Luokan patted his forehead, remembering that they didn't recognize his appearance. Just as he was about to restore his face to the system, a huge god of death appeared. I found you, and the credit is mine, the huge god of death said with a smile. Orihime and Ishida Yuryu stopped immediately, but when they wanted to turn their heads, they found that there were other gods of death following behind them. Now they were in a dilemma. This other god of death was Luo Chen, and he almost regained his true appearance. Hey, little one, we have one of these two calamities, and the one with glasses will be handed over to you. The huge Shinigami said proudly, drew out his Zanpakuto and launched an attack on Orihime. Orihime hurriedly took a step back, and Ishida Yuryu also opened his spiritual bow and launched an attack on the giant god of death, but unfortunately the attack didn't hit. Hey, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and take this annoying man with glasses away. The huge god of death said angrily. He was angry at where Luo Chen was dumbfounded. Luokan smiled wryly, and as soon as he stretched out his hand, he was threatened by Ishida Yulong. If you don't want to die, just stand there and don't move. Ishida Yulong took the spiritual bow and aimed at Luokan. As long as he moved, he would be attacked. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Luokan looked at the giant god of death next to him, and felt very helpless. It was really embarrassing that he couldn't change into his original appearance and couldn't tell the truth. In the end, Luokan chose to stand still, just to see the results of Ishida Yulong's special training during this period of time. Okay, go deal with him, I won't move, Luo Chen said lightly. Ishida Yulong glanced at Luokan suspiciously. He always felt that this spiritual power was very familiar, but it looked very unfamiliar. At this time, Orihime screamed, and the huge god of death had forced Orihime to the corner. With a sound of whoosh, Ishida Yulong shot out an arrow, just rubbing past the neck of the giant death god, leaving only a trace, not fatal. You should know that I shot in the wrong direction just now. If you attack Orihime again, I'll be rude, Ishida Yulong said coldly. He didn't have the slightest affection for these gods of death. Orihime moved cautiously, running towards Ishida Yuryu. 100 million. Chapter 899. Good chance, Sinblade darts. The giant Shinigami released Zanpakuto's power all at once, and countless small darts instantly appeared around him. The little dart rushed towards Ishida Yulong. Not only was the speed fast, but the attack was unusually sharp. Countless scratches appeared on the surrounding walls in an instant. 3 days to form a shield, I refuse. Regardless of her own danger, Orihime immediately opened a shield in front of Ishida Yulong for protection. Shirkichiti and Yulong's eyes widened. Seeing Orihime getting hurt because of saving herself, she felt sorry for her. Seeing this scene, Luokan couldn't bear it anymore, and hurried forward to check on Orihime's situation, while Ishida Yulong said excitedly, "Stay away from Orihime, or I'll kill you." Luo Chen took out a small bottle from behind him, which contained pills to heal the wound. Ishida Yulong was stunned when he saw this small bottle. He had seen Luokan use this bottle before. Doubts arose in my mind. Huge Death God disdainfully said to Luokan, "What, it turns out to be the waste god of death of the 4th division. No wonder he was defeated so easily." Luokan was not in the mood to pay attention to the giant god of death now, and looked at Orihime worriedly. Orihime slowly opened her eyes, and after seeing Luokan, she said softly, "Thank you. You'll be fine." Luo Chen showed a gentle smile. Ishida Yuryu felt more relieved when he saw that Luokan had rescued Orihime, looked back at the giant death god, and was angry at his actions. "It's unforgivable that you only picked the weak to attack." Ishida Yulong shot another arrow. The giant reaper quickly controlled the small dart to defend, blocking Yulong Ishida's attack at the most critical moment. "HMPH, even you can't stand up to my 1,000-blade dart, this time I will kill you," the giant death god said viciously. The small darts around them spun quickly and rushed towards Ishida Yulong. "Go to hell." The giant god of death smiled proudly, thinking in his heart that the credit would now be in his hands. Ishida Yulong smiled disdainfully. If it was him in the past, he would definitely not be able to keep up with such a speed. But now, his speed is nothing at all. Swish swish. Ishida Yulong unexpectedly released a shower of arrows, knocking down all the small darts flying in the air, and hitting the giant Grim Reaper. "HMPH, do you want to beat me even with this little skill? You too underestimate the Quincy." Ishida Yulong turned his head in disdain and walked towards Orihime. Seeing that Ishida Yulong had his back turned to him, the giant god of death took out a weapon from behind and threw it forcefully at Ishida Yulong. When tilde. The weapon was stopped by falling dust, and it hit the ground with a crisp sound. "It's so embarrassing. Even if you lose, you still have a sneak attack. You really don't deserve to be a god of death," Luo Chen said with disgust, rushing up and punching the giant god of death. Ishida Yulong looked at Luokan with great doubts, but he didn't expect that he was finally saved by the god of death. Luokan smiled at Ishida Yulong and said lightly, "I finally found you." Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 900. Ishida Yulong looked at Luokan in surprise, because Luokan has now returned to its original form. "Luo, Luokan." Ishida Yulong pointed at Luokan and said excitedly. Luokan laughed, and seeing Yulong Ishida's reaction was really happy, and Orihime on the side laughed too. "What, Orihime, do you know that too?" Ishida Yulong looked at Orihime in disbelief. Orihime nodded, saying that the girl's intuition is very accurate, and during the treatment, Luokan also told Orihime about her identity. Ishida Yulong looked frustrated, lowered his head and said with a gloomy 22, "It turned out that I was the only one who was kept in the dark. It's so pitiful." Orihime was very interested in Luokan's outfit, and said to Ishida Yulong, "Let's also dress up as a god of death, shall we?" Ishida Yuryu looked at Orihime suspiciously, with some refusal in his heart. Coincidentally, at this time, a man and a woman, the god of death, happened to pass by, so Orihime rushed over and beat them up. "Orihime, you are amazing." Ishida Yulong looked at Orihime with a twitching mouth, but unexpectedly she knocked out the two gods of death with her bare hands. Luokan was also shocked by Orihime's potential, and silently felt sad for the two gods of death. "Hey, in fact, Longs and I have learned some karate. She said that I am very talented, and I can reach the level of a black belt as soon as I learn it." Black belt. Luokan was shocked. How many people can't get a black belt after studying for so many years, and Orihime is the level of a black belt after learning. This is really more popular than people. Let's change it quickly, or someone will come again soon, Orihime said and threw the death god's clothes to Ishida Yulong. Ishida Yulong looked at Orihime suspiciously and asked, "Here?" Luokan said quickly, "Of course not, you come with me, there is a room nearby that is safe, you can go there and change." Just like that, Luo Chen took Ishida Yuryu and Orihime to a safe room to change clothes. "You can change. I'll give you the wind at the door, but be quick," Luo Chen said and closed the door, then carefully observed the surrounding situation. Orihime wanted to undress as soon as the door was closed, but Yulong Ishida hurriedly said, "Is this something wrong?" Orihime turned her head and saw Ishida Yulong laughing heehily. She took Ishida Yulong as Long Zegui, so she didn't have any scruples. "I see." Orihime said that she built a changing room with the materials next to it. "Hey, go in and change," Orihime said to Ishida Yulong with a smile. Ishida Yuryu looked at Orihime speechlessly. It should be the girl who went in and changed. "What's the matter, don't you like this locker room?" Orihime looked at Yulong Ishida suspiciously. Ishida Yulong sighed, pushed Orihime directly into the changing room, and said, "You can just come out after changing." Falling Dust Mian felt that he had waited for a century and couldn't help pushing the door open to check the situation. "Are you okay?" Luo Chen asked loudly. Unexpectedly, Orihime and Ishida Yuryu were sewing clothes. "Hee, this dress is a bit too big, so we took it apart and it'll be ready soon," Orihime explained with a smile. Luo Chen really convinced the two of them. Under such circumstances, they even cared about whether the clothes would fit. "Okay." Ishida Yulong put on the Death God's coat and said valiantly.